Town Manager Matt Magley.
Here.
Town Attorney Nicholas Hartman.
Here.
All right, up next is item 2C, approval of the agenda. Do you have any changes to the agenda as presented? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilmember Craycraft, second from Mayor Pro Tem Serbu. All those in favor? Passes unanimously, and we're on to our council reports. We'd like to go first tonight.
Start the year off. First of all, happy 2026, everybody. I can't believe we're already 12 days into January. Where has time gone? But I hope everybody had a lovely holiday season and were able to spend time with family and loved ones and do some relaxing and unwinding of the year and getting ready for 2026. I have just a couple of quick updates. Last week, I attended the 17th Legislative Breakfast hosted by Commuting Solutions and the Northwest Mayors and Commissioners Coalition. The governor was a keynote speaker, and there were a number of other state officials that were talking about and sharing some of the big transportation initiatives the state's currently working on, including Front Range Passenger Rail, which, according to the governor, his goal is to have that in service by the end of 2028, so that's very exciting. And the idea is to have 3 trains running per day from Pueblo up to Fort Collins. Fort Collins. So that's very exciting. The state's still negotiating with BNSF on access agreements and all that kind of good stuff, but it's very exciting transportation news for the state of Colorado. And an idea that I had was to actually seek corporate sponsorship for that train, and we could reach out to Coors and get them to sponsor it and call it the Silver Bullet. You know, offset some taxpayer dollars for public transportation with corporate sponsorship. Exactly. And you could seek a partnership with the Broncos and call it the Broncos Bullet during game days, serving, you know, a local beverage from Golden. So, you know, I really see this working. Anyway, there's a lot of really great stuff happening in the transportation world to get people out of single occupancy vehicles and hopefully to destinations where they want to go. So I'm really excited about what was shared at the legislative breakfast. The next update I wanted to share was our Silk Committee. Met last week, and we sorted out all the sock donations that members of the community had donated to Silk, and there were, I don't know, several hundred pounds of personal items, personal care products, towels, socks, you name it, and it was there. So I just want to give a big shout out to Silk for running and sponsoring that donation and helping those in need. They also talked about their Parents' Night Out, which is February 14th at El Dorado School. There's going to be lots of arts and crafts and board games and musical chairs and tug of war and all sorts of fun things for the kids to do while parents go out on a date, hopefully on February 14th. Then they're currently planning their STEM-a-thon for March 14th, so I'll have probably more to share next month after they get some of those details worked out. So I just want to give a big shout out to Silk for all the great things they're doing early in the year. That's my update.
Thanks, Mike. Heather?
Thank you. Just one meeting I attended since the last time we sat here was Historical Commission, which hosted their event on Friday, December 19th by Zoom. So if we can do it, everyone can. Great meeting. Everyone was in attendance, and just wanted to let the public know that the cemetery is going to have open dates quarterly or by appointment. So a lot of that is just being figured out right now to add to the already full calendar that Historical Commission hosts. But more to come, and I'll make sure to announce those too as they come around the corner. So that was all I had.
Thanks, Heather. Who's next? Stephanie?
I'll go. Grab my glasses because I can't quite read my writing. First off, Happy New Year to everybody, and hope everybody enjoyed their holidays. So I too attended the Community and Solutions Legislative Breakfast, and thank you for the recap. That was great. I know I'm super excited about the train and love the silver bullet idea. That sounds like a lot of fun. A couple other updates from that breakfast that might intrigue everybody as far as improvements, because there has been funding already allocated for these things. So just to let you know what else is coming down the pike. Colorado 119, Colorado 7 between Boulder and Brighton, Colorado 42 around 96th Street. We'll all see safety and other improvements. And then there's also going to be safety improvements along US 287 that will make it a lot safer for pedestrians and vehicles alike. So look forward to seeing those this year. Just a quick reminder that Chat with the Chief is this Saturday, January 17th from 9 to 10 at the Community Center. Just a great opportunity to learn about safety in the community and things that you can be doing to make sure that you're safe, as well as just general updates in the community. So thanks to Sergeant Solomon for hosting those, and excited to kick off the new year with that. And then just a little PSA, Park has 3 vacancies. So if you have any interest in joining an advisory committee, we could use the help on Park. So put that in your back pocket and think about it. And that's all I've got.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie. Neil, Jen?
All right. Happy New Year. It's been a few weeks, just a couple of very quick updates. A reminder that Friday, January 23rd, CAPS will be holding their first screening, a movie called The Librarians at the Civic Space as part of the Boulder Film Friends in Superior, or BFFs. Unfortunately, their actual first movie screening was supposed to be in December, and it was canceled because, as we know, the wind. Nevertheless, CAPS is working on potentially having the producer attend in person and participate in an attendee Q&A in a session afterwards. She's on her way over to Sundance, so she'll be stopping here and then continue. CAPS has got to have a quick meeting to greenlight the per diem, but that is probably going to happen in the next few days. But either way, the movie, if you haven't seen, I definitely recommend looking up the trailer online. It looks to be a fascinating movie. And then, as many of you who live in Superior have probably noticed, T-Mobile or Intrepid have been laying fiber in the neighborhoods. It's been pretty much every other day. Somebody's been walking through my yard. I finally had Intrepid turned on today. Gigabit up, gigabit down. It's pretty cool, but I also have like 1,000 marking flags, like just everywhere. My grass is like 17 different colors, and there's 2 really big holes, but it's all good because now I have gigabit internet. So that's it for me.
All right. Thanks, Neil. Jen?
Yeah, so this is a little bit long because I missed the last meeting, so some catching up to do. But I guess December, I attended the NOAA NCAR protest to speak on the importance of science in communities like ours that definitely need that kind of data to plan for extreme weather, for events like the Marshall Fire. I also spoke on behalf of the federal workers and veterans that hold up our economy and jobs like those at NCAR, many of which are residents here in Superior. I joined Commissioner Lokeman for a tour of the Boulder County Jail to learn about the services available at the new Joe Pelly Center, which is really focused on transitioning people out of incarceration and into the community. And so these are programs that are using data and evidence-based practices to help people transition, which I think this is just a huge win-win for the people that are incarcerated as well as our community when they're coming out of those that kind of environment. So, and just if you they're happy to do tours. So if that's something that you're interested in, it's really a wonderful learning opportunity to see how everything works there. I've been working with the county to advocate for how we're going to use the 1B funds that the county approved. These are funds that were intended to address the mental health gaps created by the funding cuts from DC. Those are massive, and I'll speak more to what the Joint Budget Committee is doing for the state on that in a moment, but we're going to feel that in all over the county and areas, so I'm glad that that was approved, so thanks everybody who voted for that. I attended the Marshall Fire Memorial on December 30th, where I heard from residents on how they're doing. Specifically, there were a lot of comments about the settlement, which a lot of people, not everyone, received in December. Frustrations with insurance companies being paid as part of the settlement, but residents not being paid or made whole. So based on the feedback, I don't know what it's going to look like yet, but I'd suggested a post-settlement survey so we could get feedback from residents so they can share with legislators because currently legislators in the state are working to develop legislation around insurance accountability. And unfortunately, most of these conversations are being held through the lens of insurance companies and not through survivors. And so I'm going to just keep working to provide that feedback in those rooms and demand resident-focused legislation, because it's just ludicrous that people that are involved in insurance companies are getting to decide what's habitability means and, you know, what people who have insurance policies get to receive, despite thinking they're in contracts that are supposed to wholly take care of them if something like that happens. I spent a week in LA for the 1-year fire anniversary. Their alternative living expenses, their ALE, are running out. For some people, it's already gone. There's been an increase in suicide, and people are nowhere near getting home or even stable housing at this point. 1 year in, if you think about our fire and where we were, it was just amazingly resourced community and people driving to recover. But they're growing their advocacy skills, and the insurance companies are starting to pay out policies that they've been sitting on for 10 months after successful community organizing and media campaigns. And in short, their fight is really just getting started. With new elections coming down the line and efforts to vote out people who've sided with insurance companies over the people. And I just want to reiterate how lucky we were to have our insurance commissioner and our attorney general, because anytime they were contacted by me and other fire recovery leaders, they were listening and they were doing whatever they could to, you know, like get the ALE extended, things that we had in our community that other fire communities have not experienced. So it's just amazing that we didn't know what we had. And I just want to point out how great it was. It's one of those things where when I'm in other fire communities, I always feel very lucky and also just saddened by what insurance commissioners and attorney generals in other states are, how they're managing that. Let's see. So also announced an ACES event, some eco leader training. So this is going to be Superior's first zero waste carnival where you can get some eco training. I don't know if you know who Miss Peel is, but she is a favorite. So there'll be activity stations and hot chocolate. And then Miss Peel's going to help people understand what's recyclable, what's compostable, what's appropriate for the landfill. Kids of all ages, adults that also don't know these things are also welcome to come and hang out with Miss Peel. It's Saturday, January 31st, and it'll be announced on the town channels. Yesterday, I attended the open house by Representative Brown, where I heard from families who expect to be heavily impacted by Medicaid cuts. An interesting thing that I learned is that the Joint Budget Committee doesn't always have data or analysis on the longer term impacts of the cuts they're considering. And it isn't because they don't want them, they're just not available. And this is unprecedented what they're working on at this level, to have to cut this many funds from different programs. But there's no way to tell if cutting $100 over here is going to end up costing $200 over there, because of the human behavior and dynamics that happen when people have to find other resources. So I'm drafting a letter to the JBC to do my best to compel them to ensure that they're making cuts based on evidence and not moving so fast that the second and third order impacts aren't considered. So if you have some free time and you want to also let them know that they should be making decisions on data, that's probably a good idea. Veteran updates. So there's been a lot of activity in the veteran world based on the turn of events in our country lately. It turns out we don't like it when our government uses the military as a political pawn or as their personal attack army, while also trying to silence veterans like Senator Mark Kelly for reminding service members of their obligation to disobey illegal orders. I am more than concerned about the direction this administration's going and the lawlessness in which they continue to enact in communities that have not asked for them to be there. I've called on our legislators, our Colorado legislators, to get out of their offices and do something, whether it's going to Minnesota or working in our communities in Colorado, ensure that we have safety nets in place if and when things continue to decline. So I just want to say this is not normal. And if you're experiencing any of this the way that I am not sure how we're all still going to work every day and keeping it together. So biggest takeaway is just a reminder to take care of yourselves and maybe turn off the doom scrolling sometimes if you can, but this isn't going to be over soon. So just take care of yourselves.
Thanks, Jen. Jason?
I attended the legislative breakfast with
Council members Miller and Foster. Mike did such a great job explaining it. I'm not going to add to it. I just wanted to say, as we welcome 2026, Happy New Year. It's great to keep in mind this is the 150th birthday of this great state of Colorado, as well as the 250th anniversary of the United States of America. So there will be celebrations upcoming. I'm really curious to see what our 4th of July looks like this year. Nothing said on that yet, but I wish you all great happiness and safety, and thank you for being amazing residents and being patient with us council members through the year, and I look forward to a really good year of governance in 2026. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Jason. And I'll just say Happy New Year to everybody. I don't have anything else to report tonight, so Town Manager Matt Magley.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a reminder to everyone, we're still under Stage 1 fire restrictions for the time being. Forecast looks pretty dry, so. And then the second thing, we're switching to a new agenda management platform. So we're working on some bugs still. If you have any questions or anything that you see might need to be fixed, report those to me or Shannon. And then the last thing is, it's impacting how we display it on our website as well. It's not under the meetings and agenda link and page anymore. It's its own separate link under latest news. So we continue to work on that and see how we're gonna get that set up with the other committees, but that's it.
Thanks, Matt. Town Attorney Nick Hartman.
Nothing here.
All right, and our Town Clerk Shannon. Okay, we're on to public comment on our consent agenda presentations and non-agenda items. If you'd like to make public comment and you're here tonight, we've got a sign-in sheet at the desk. Give us your first and last name, and we'll call on you in the order in which we've got you listed on the sheet. You don't need to give your full street address, just give your city in which you reside. If you're participating via Zoom, please use the raise hand feature on Zoom, and I'll call on you in the order in which I see your hand raised. We have a concept plan on the Zaharias development. If you're here tonight, this isn't a land use hearing, so you don't have to hold your comments until that item comes up, but I will have public comment allowed during the Zaharias concept. So if you'd like to hold your comments, that's fine to do. So first up.
I have Christopher Cole.
I will hold my comments until they're.
All right. And on Zoom, we have Michelle Gazarek.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Well, Happy New Year. It's a great and exciting year for myself being on ACES, our Advisory Committee for Environmental Sustainability. And I joined ACES 4 years ago. And since then, you, our town council, have helped us adopt our Sustainability Action Plan, which focused on climate change, energy conservation, transportation, clean air, clean water, nature and regenerative systems, and zero waste. And this benefits all our residents by making their lives healthier and helps our planet conserve our natural resources and helps fight the climate change. I want to celebrate our progress, which you can see on our dashboard. And we also hosted an event in the past called 123 Electrify. And during that program, we had many residents inquire about changing furnaces and hot water tanks that are fueled by fossil fuels like natural gas into heat pumps. And so I just want to thank our town for doing the Hello Superior article on 2 of our residents that have successfully integrated heat pumps into their home, reducing their use of natural gas and utility costs, especially when they've combined it with solar panels. And we couldn't have done this 4 years ago without your help, especially allowing our town to hire a sustainability manager and sustainability analyst. I do want to reiterate what Council Member Kelch said. We have a great event on January 31st. It is a family eco-leader training, and we will be at the community center from 10 to 10:30, we'll have some games and hot chocolate. And then from 10:30 to 11:30, we'll have our training presentation. So we invite everyone in the community. You can register or show up, and hopefully we'll see you there. And finally, we do have 3 openings on ACES. And so I invite any community member who's interested to go to the town website, look on the ACES webpage, see if it's something is interest to you. We meet the second Thursday from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. And I just wish you the best this year, and thank you for your continued support of our Sustainability Action Plan. Have a good day.
Thank you, Michelle. Anybody else for public comment on Zoom? All right, seeing none. Anybody here in the council room? Seeing none. Public comment is closed, and we're moving on to item 3A, which is our presentation section of the evening. And we've got a presentation on the 2025 Colorado Wildfire Resiliency Code presentation.
And Allison James and Renee Stavros have been working on this and will be presenting tonight.
Good evening, Mayor. Oh, can you hear me? Is it picking up? Good evening, Mayor, Pro Tem, and Council. Nice to see you guys this evening. Today's presentation is on the Colorado Wildfire Resiliency Code. And the state of Colorado, through Bill 23166, established this code board and developed a state wildland urban interface code aimed at reducing wildfire risk to life, property, and infrastructure. Our last meeting that we had about this was on the June 16th work session, and we talked about this code having to be adopted in Superior. The state formally adopted the code on July 1st following our meeting and gave us this comprehensive definition of the wildland urban interface and identification of the areas that this code includes, some of which fall in our town. So in anticipation of our February 9th public hearing and adoption of the code, we drafted a website for residents that I'll kind of go through with you this evening. We made it live on the website for a moment, just so we could go through it tonight. And it's kind of a comprehensive way that residents will be able to understand the designation of their parcel, if it falls in this code, and if the requirements apply to their parcel. We thought the easiest way for residents to start off on this process was just to search their address in this map. The map, once you pull it up, it shows the town of Superior. You can put in your address. You'll see one of 2 designations. Some parcels, am I done? All right. Okay, good. Some parcels actually are split in half with both designations, and in those parcels, it will default to the higher requirements for that parcel. And just a brief overview, it applies to new construction of residential and commercial structures and the defensible space around them. It's really more robust alterations, and it's over 500 feet, increased footprint of a structure, over 25% of an exterior of a structure affected. And then we kind of have a listing of what it doesn't apply to. So if people look their parcel up on the map, they pop hot for that parcel to be included for those requirements, then they can say, okay, what do I need this permit for? Does it hit these things? We have a little bit of background. We talk about what is a WUI, which I'm sure council is familiar with. And we start talking about mapping how many parcels fall in these zoned properties within this designated WUI boundary. And then we go into the 2 classes. Class 1, which is yellow, talks about all the requirements for that, which is a lot. And then orange, which includes all of yellow and adds a little bit more requirements to that. especially around structure hardening and landscape, how landscape is meeting the structure, how far away it is from the structure, if there is tree canopy 10 feet away from the roof line. So there's a lot of different little pieces. And the recommendation is that we adopt this code by reference. So we're not writing a specific code specific to Superior. It's adopting the entire code by reference. And then, we thought that there's also an opportunity for the parcels that did not fall within one of these two designation types. And so we wanted to give information as well to everyone about what home ignition zones and mitigation looks like, because it's much more robust in being a hardened town if everybody does work in this area. And so we talked about home ignition zones. We talked about how you can make defensible space on your properties. And then we also talked about how could this code impact insurance? And this is really from the Division of Insurance and their guidance around this specific code. And then I'm going to let Renee go from here.
Good evening. Allison did all the fun stuff. And then, so to continue upon what she just talked about, there is a mechanism for enforcement of this as we move forward. Once the code is adopted, there is certain requirements for people to come into compliance with the code at certain times. And then there's also, you can choose to come into compliance ahead of time. You can also report a neighbor who is not in compliance and is supposed to be. And so the enforcement is TBD because we are kind of waiting to see how it goes. So we have staff in Safe Built's inspection folks. And then we also have our landscape architect who we contract with, who can answer, site area landscaping questions and do audits that way. So we have folks who kind of know this is coming, and we're kind of waiting to see who calls, what their questions are, and then we'll address the enforcement part of this code as we learn more about the needs and desires of residents. Yeah. Questions?
I'm really excited to see this coming forward next month for consideration, so thank you for all your work on this. I understand that from a liability standpoint, the town may not want to be in a position of making recommendations to private property owners on things that they could do with their landscaping within their defensible space. And at the same time, how can we be helpful? Because clearly if they're asking the question, they want to be doing the right thing. So how do we thread that needle of providing the right level of guidance that doesn't get us into trouble down the road?
So there's a lot of information available, which is part of why we added some of this to this section. You can go to the Colorado State Forest Service. They have all kinds of information on plant materials. We also have our building code folks who can talk about, ignition resistant materials for your buildings. We can't make recommendations as to what people should use, but we can give them resources to make
and
informed
will Safe Build
decisions.
be fully informed on how we want to approach this with our residents, you know?
Yes, I mean, right now, it's like, we're kind of telling them as we go
Okay.
what we expect or don't expect. We really just don't know at this point. I mean,
Fair enough.
there's the code requirements, and they are fully prepared to, manage that piece of it. But when people come asking questions about what they should do or shouldn't do, that's where I'm not sure what level of information yeah.
I've got something to add to that. So within our resiliency and mitigation and preparedness programming that we've been doing for the last 4 years, we have close connections with Mountain View Fire, who will do reviews, with Wildfire Partners, who provide funding, and we've been doing a lot of neighborhood work with them. And then also the Boulder County Sheriff's Office wildfire mitigation group, where actually we're hoping to kick off in the next month or two a mitigation project at Summit in Rock Creek for that whole neighborhood to be mitigated. So there's a lot of resources. I have them. People can reach out to me. I can connect them, and I can get projects going to help them do these mitigation measures. We've been working on it for so long. We know junk the junipers. We know the first 5 feet. We could just talk about the whole litany. We also have our video library on the website that provides so many resources. So any resident can reach out to me if they have a project for a whole neighborhood, if they need specific information just for their own parcel and peace of mind. And we've been doing that for the last 4 years. So I feel really confident that we have all of the resources for this.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
So just for clarification, so first off, thank you for all this work and for keeping a close eye on what's coming out of Denver. And things are always changing, and we need to adapt with the statutes that get signed into law. So with regards to, as I understand it, so this is going to apply to any new structures or basically substantial. So if somebody builds an addition to their house, somebody is building a new house, 25% or more of the structure essentially is getting rebuilt, then it's going to apply. So it's basically looking prospective. So for anybody who already has their structure in place, they're not making modifications to it, it's not going to apply to them in that regard.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. So if somebody's putting new siding on their home and they need a permit and they're putting it all on the whole home and it's over 25% of the exterior, they're not just siding one side of their house.
Okay.
Then this would apply. If their parcel is within one of these areas within the map of the boundary.
And would it only apply then to the improvements so it's not like by putting on the siding that then it's triggering additional requirements beyond that project?
Generally, yes. So it would just be for the siding. We wouldn't make you replace a roof at the same time. But if there's tree branches and you're in class 2 and they're overhanging and they're within 10 feet or whatever of the new siding that you're replacing, then you would need to cut those back and become compliant with that particular piece of it. So it gets a little bit gray. But our intent is not to force people to be 100% compliant with the first project that they come, that they have to comply with.
Okay. So separate and apart from somebody that is making improvements to their house, whether it's siding or a new roof or something like that, or an addition, for just the landscaping requirements. So say I never have to do anything to my house. It just stays status quo forever. What landscaping requirements trigger getting into compliance on their own?
Technically speaking, when we adopt the code, everyone who falls into one of these areas should be starting to comply with those site area requirements. So if you're in class 1, the 0 to 5 foot range starts to apply. And then if you're in class 2, it goes all the way out to 30 feet from your property. So it is going to be on residents. We're not going to go around and enforce, per se, these requirements immediately, but I imagine that over time, people are going to look to make some of these improvements, and we're here to help with that process.
And I also think if someone needs to pull, for example, if we start a process for fence permitting, that would trigger it.
Okay. And just for purposes of communicating to the public, so these maps, the class 1, class 2, that is something that the state has decided.
Yes.
They've mapped the entire Front Range. So I'd encourage everybody to look at this website, get familiar with these maps, because there isn't a lot of rhyme or reason with regards to how they drew the line in Superior. You'll see like half the Sagamore neighborhoods in class 2 and half of it's not. Yeah, so there are going to be some neighbors in Superior who are disproportionately affected by this when the person across the street or absolutely next door is not. And that concerns me. I don't think it's necessarily smart. So I'm not particularly thrilled about the way that that's going to impact people.
While you guys are pulling up the map, like the town, like in part of the orange zone by Hilltop, the town has a bunch of its own trees in this space, right? That go right up against private fences. What is our plan for our trees in the orange zone?
For us, depending on the species type, we would, if it's a really highly flammable tree, we would remove that tree. If it is one of the trees that is less flammable, limbing up to 6 feet, especially along a fence line, for example, is what we're going to do a lot of the work in Summit at Rock Creek. Of course, removing our junipers and those low-grow flashy fuels. Mainly the deciduous trees are not the problem. It's just some species of these evergreens that are just really flammable and create a robust ignition. But a lot of our trees, we can limb up to where the fire on the ground would not ignite the tree itself. So if they're limbed up about 6 feet, which makes them look like a little bit of a lollipop, but it's better than not having the tree. So we've been working on that, this process also with our hazard mitigation grant program, the funding that we got from FEMA for this hazard mitigation. So there's been a lot of areas around town where residents will notice increased mowing, hardening of different vegetation areas, pulling out the junipers, and also limbing up. So we've been doing that all around town. The ridge was mitigated by the same program that we're going to be implementing at Summit. And so, you know, just for a data point for the Summit, that's over 200 units, so it's about 3.5% of all units in town. So we're really working hard to try to get this mitigation going, and for the last 4 years have made I think a big difference towards, actions that will help people to comply with this.
No, I appreciate that, Allison. But when you guys bring this back, it'd be good to understand, at least for Hilltop, because when we think about the WUI, I don't know that anybody who lives in the Hilltop area of Rock Creek is cognizant of the fact that they're in the orange zone, and the town has actually a bunch of evergreens in that orange zone. Yeah. So if we are going to start pruning those or taking them down, it'd be good to talk about that here so that the board is aware of it before we start getting a bunch of calls about trees getting knocked down on the outside of the fence.
Sure, absolutely.
I'm not just looking at the Google map. There's like 20 trees along the outside of that fence, and they're all evergreens.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for that. We'll definitely make sure that these residents understand the mitigation. I think our goat grazing mitigation has really helped a lot because we've been able to talk about all of these different programs we've been implementing with people. If you have any recommendations on, how we should reach out or what type of venue besides council, just let me know and we'll organize it.
No, and I think that's fantastic. I think the goats are great, but we haven't really gone after trees the same way that we have for small vegetation, at least, in the areas that people can see that past their hearts. Because the thing I'm really concerned about with this map is it's going to change. Like, this map changes like year to year, day to day, and we're going to, go down a path of something that, 2 years from now is going to be radically different from what we need. And that's a proverbial challenge that we all have.
Yeah, and Leslie Clark, Parks Recreation Open Space. Just to add to that, we have been working on limbing up trees over the years. We have a lot of trees that are very close to fence lines of private property, and we have a lot of work to do there. We'll continue to work on limbing those up and addressing the branches that overlap on the fence and overlap with the private landowner trees. We'll utilize both the hazard mitigation program as well as our youth corps, but it's going to be a significant, every year we're going to be probably losing some trees as well as limbing those up. So we'll continue to see that.
Yeah, and just so everybody on the board is aware, the council, there was somebody who was trying to sell their home about 9 months ago, and they had a bunch of trees on the outside of the fence line. And the person who was trying to buy that house was from California and was just amazed that those trees were so close to the property. And they wanted the trees cut down. They're in town property, and the homeowner was willing to go do that. So I think we need to figure out how we want to deal with that, because when I reached out to Matt, he's like, hey, we can't afford to cut down those trees. And I completely agree. But when those trees are town property and in the WUI, and they are going to be coming down, we probably should have a policy or a program that allows a private homeowner to take those trees down in the name of safety with an approved contractor and so on and so forth, so that, from a ability to sell a home that's in the WUI, that we're helping them to mitigate, the demonstrated concerns that they would have.
We have worked with a few homeowners on that, where they've funded the tree removals through a company that we've vetted and have proper insurance in place. But I agree that that's going to become more and more a situation that we have to kind of grease the wheels for.
Yeah, thank you.
Allison, I had one more question. For the homeowners that are on the westernmost edge of town that abut right up to Boulder County open space, how are we engaging with the county to ensure that the county side of the fence line is mitigated in a way that gives some emotional relief to those residents that are on that western edge?
Thank you so much for that question. One of the things that the Marshall Fire triggered, including all of these codes and new mitigation measures that really we hadn't done before in the Eastern Plains. We've also started, it's called a WIC plan. And funny enough, I call it the John Wick because I feel like it covers everything. It's the Wildland Interface Community Conflagration Operations Response Plan. And what that is the emergency managers, myself included, with the sheriff's office, fire, and sheriff's wildfire crew have gotten together to audit utilities, water infrastructure, hardened and mitigated areas in town, including even our traffic lights, how much battery life they have, how we can hook them up to generators for evacuation and firefighting. And one of the parts of this plan is that we have taken all this data from every polygon, every evacuation polygon from the Office of Disaster Management, and we're looking at how these areas overlap those polygons. And one of the terms that we're going to use are these wildfire risk, high risk area polygons. And that western side is going to be a hotspot in this designation. And we're hoping that as that plan is developed and finalized, that once these areas are in a formal plan and document, we've been working towards this. I remember Stefan Reinhold from the county came and spoke with us probably about a year and a half ago, and, about these mitigation areas in the open space on the western boundary. And we're hoping that this plan, like this formalized operations response plan, talking about these mitigation areas in high-risk zones, will help to further that conversation.
Sorry.
This might be more forward planning, but I'm just thinking about our yard waste facility, and like if I take out 3 juniper trees, like how easy can we make this for people so that they are able to take whatever they're removing, incentivize the removal, because there's a easy way for it to go away from their property. I don't know what that's going to look like, but that would be a cost burden and something that I think would prohibit some people from choosing into doing it. And so maybe just something to think about, later.
I think that's a great idea. One of the things we did last year is we had a chipping day for free where people could take out, a lot of the vegetation that they wanted to remove. And I'm hoping to continue that. We're also going to do that, like we did for the Ridge and we're doing for the Summit. It's all at no charge for that whole neighborhood. I would love for every neighborhood to call me up and say, hey, Allison, we want you to throw one of these events for us. So, a few blocks at a time, hopefully we can get that done. And Leslie will talk about
Just
the yard site.
the yard site is available and can handle that. And we can rotate the dumpsters through there on a, more robust schedule if needed. But really having the events is probably the best way to handle that. So.
Do we have any plans to provide individual notice to the homeowners that are affected? Or is the plan just to consider this in a public meeting and then assume that the residents are going to be familiar with the code? Because if that's the plan, I don't think that that's sufficient.
Well, I think initially what we'll do is we'll do a big communications release of the new website and provide all this information. And we haven't specifically talked about how we'll actually notify every parcel, but it could be either through a utility bill, a door hanger, whatever, a flyer in the mail. We haven't really discussed what that looks like yet, but we have kind of typical ways we do that for public engagements for parks or whatever is abutting your home. So absolutely.
Yeah, I think we at a minimum, we need to let people know, certainly before we start any sort of like enforcement proceedings. But then the next question that we're going to get is, why is my house special and my neighbor's house, which is directly across the street, is not? And that doesn't seem fair, which kind of gets to the point that I raised before. So, case in point.
Even half of my parcel, but
yeah, exactly.
It's the whole
right.
parcel.
In the Sagamore neighborhood, the landscape was cleared because of the fire. But in the Rock Creek neighborhood, in the south part, that part wasn't impacted by the fire. So, there's going to be some people who have absolutely no idea that they're included in this, and then all of a sudden are going to be looking at, tens of thousands of dollars of potential costs of dealing with removing brush and trees and bushes, all
And
because...
they pull that permit too. So I think for the first year, that's kind of our phase. When someone pulls a permit, people start to kind of get that. But we're going to definitely send out something for them individually for the parcels that are in the zone.
Okay. And do we have any thoughts on, are we simply going to go along with what the state has decided makes sense? Or are we going to modify these maps in any way that we think is actually more reflective of what the real risk is?
That would be up to the council.
We're open to suggestions, but to start, it was really just, what is the required? We're going based on requirements, but we can modify them over time or as you'll feel makes most sense. I mean, we contemplated all kinds of different things and brought, I think, a few ideas too, but it's, your concern was our concern, and like these maps are what they are, but they are the required code. Like we have to follow this map and adopt this code and apply it as they've shown us at minimum. And we can go above that if we wish.
When we adopted, or sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask, what are the ramifications if we don't?
Adopt the code?
Not so much the code, but if we are not enforcing it, if it doesn't make sense in certain areas.
You are looking at me. I was looking at my own.
Totally hypothetical.
That question's probably more for me. I would have to look up if the state has some kind of penalty for not adopting this code or not enforcing this code. I don't know that answer off the top of my head, but I can look into it and get back to you.
Yeah, I would just be curious. Not so much the adoption, but I would agree some of this doesn't really make sense. And so
A lot of times we see the way they impose their codes is restricting funding to the local cities if we're not complying with the code.
Well, in reality, we're going to try and, implement slowly the landscape pieces. And then the rest of it comes when you apply for permits for doing certain things, replacing your roof, siding, depending on your class where you fall into. So those things will comply with the code that we adopt when it's applicable and only to the item that you're applying for with your permit. But the landscape is where it gets a little bit more gray.
That part of if you're doing some substantial modifications to your house, that's already the case with code upgrades now, right? Like, oh, you're redoing your bathroom, and then all of a sudden, like, you need to redo your electrical, or you need to redo windows or something like that because they're currently not the code. So there's always those sorts of code upgrade overages that require you to spend additional on a project just by virtue of modernizing a house that was built 30 years ago under a previous code. That doesn't concern me as much as the, hey, I haven't done anything, and all of a sudden there are these landscaping, really arbitrary kind of landscaping requirements that in some cases could be very significant. And I don't like the idea of the state figuring out that, like, yeah, on Snowmass Circle at this house, you're going to have to spend $15,000, but your neighbor's not going to have to. That just seems just not well thought out, and also just like not particularly helpful for actually defending against the wildfire, right? So like we're doing all the things that we're doing with like the mitigation and the mowing and doing things to protect our community as a whole. Having this kind of like arbitrary line drawn because this is what some committee at the state legislature decided to promulgate doesn't really seem like it's a smart way of doing business.
Well, and to build off of that, Mayor, and I realize we've got a date by which we have to adopt the code. I understand that. But to address some of these models where a quarter of a house or a half or quarter of a property or a third of a property is in the orange and the rest is in the yellow, or it's in one, but the rest is in neither. Do we have the capacity to bring on the modeling consultant to help us kind of fine tune that to get it to get the map to a place where it makes more sense for our community? So if there's a particular street that we designate that everything west of such and such street is in the yellow zone and everything east of that isn't, just so we get out of this, well, my neighbor's in it, but I'm not.
It's interesting that you say that, because in a lot of the meetings before the adoption, many jurisdictions said the same thing. Can you just give us a road that gives us a nice boundary, especially on these more high-risk areas, because it is more of a fuel break for a fire. So many people felt like that made sense, so I'm glad that you mentioned that.
And again, if that's work that we have to do post-adoption and we have to adopt it just to meet the timeline and there's some additional work that we can do,
Right.
I would be open to supporting that.
Yeah, maybe a phased approach. This first year is going to be a big learning experience for all of us. And so maybe we collect data, see how our partners and our other jurisdictions in the area handle this year, and then, maybe look at a phased approach in the next couple of years.
Allison, can you zoom out just a tad? And as you're doing that, I do appreciate this dialogue, because I do really want to understand what Jefferson County and the state and the feds are going to be doing with Rocky Flats, because it's just crosshatched, and I've never seen a goat out there. I've seen a bunch of elk, but I don't know what actually mitigation is happening there. And if you recall the fire, was it 2008? The one that went over the ridge? Is that why Snowmass Circle is in the orange zone? Because of Rocky Flats, which no one is doing anything about? At least Boulder County has gotten a little bit more aggressive about managing their space, but nothing, to my knowledge, has happened at Rocky Flats ever, except for the bike trail. So, notwithstanding that, what discretion do we have to adapt our policies to match or track what our neighbors are doing or not doing?
That's a really good point. One of the questions was, even Marshall Fire, if we just zoom into ourselves and Marshall Fire, you'll see that the footprint of the Marshall Fire is not reflected also. So that's a good question.
I will say that we are going to be updating our landscape code this year. So we'll have a lot of discussions about types of plants and where they belong and where they don't belong as part of that conversation. So, as we go through, we adopt the minimum for this and we start looking into more landscape code items, we might find more answers, because we will hire a consultant for that who could hopefully help us navigate some of the questions that we have related to the types of species and where they belong and how to make it make more sense, and apply it not to just individual property owners, but to, certain areas or borders or something along those lines.
And one other thing. Lisa Ritchie and I went to the state and asked for a peer exchange on this topic, which they started for us because of all of these exact questions. All jurisdictions that do not already have a WUI code implemented, even the ones that do, are having to really stretch and learn to figure out the exact items and, how to implement this code.
Last comment, and I really appreciate all the work that's been going into this, because we started talking about this 5 years ago, and it's great that the state has stepped in with some guidance, because we've all been trying to figure out what that means. And of course, when the state steps in, they provide some information, but not enough, and it is what it is. But can I just have a single request that we incorporate some aspect of this in the Hello Superior magazine, so people can see that this is coming, in not an email, because we'll lose it, but something that's hard, specific, with resources, so they know why this is happening.
Yeah, we're already working on that to match this website and kind of get it all, sent out to the public as soon as we can.
Thank you.
All right. Any additional questions for staff?
Nick, I just amend my question, kind of what Mark was saying. I'm less concerned about siding and stuff, but if somebody's pulling a siding permit, I don't, to your point, want them having to do a ton of landscaping on top of that. That would be my specific question, is if we don't adhere to it on that aspect, what would the repercussions be?
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Renee and Allison, for that update, and we look forward to speaking again in about a month. All right, we're on to item number 4, which is our project updates, and 4A is our Rock Creek Parkway 2026 reconstruction project update.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Oh, wait. Here we go. No. Here we are. Can I make this full screen? Thank you. Escape, okay. Hi, I'm Christine Katz. I'm the civil engineer with the Public Works Department. So we presented last council meeting on our Rock Creek Parkway reconstruction project from Indiana to Colton. And council requested to look at a few different options for two of the intersections. So we had some images created, and we can look at those. So the first intersection is the Rock Creek Parkway South 88th Street roundabout. And this is what we currently have in the design. And you can see it's those two lanes on this, the eastbound direction on the south side of the roundabout. We have those two lanes going through. If we took a look at what it would look like if we took one of those lanes and made it into a bike lane. So everything else would pretty much be the same on that north side of the roundabout, but then down below, we would have the physical separation with the curb between the cars and bikes, and the physical barrier with two curbs and a railing between the cars and the pedestrians. Oh, excuse me. And the estimated cost is about $61,000. And just so we would keep that one lane of traffic through the roundabout at Coal Creek Drive, and then through this, and then it would open back up right after the roundabout. The other intersection was Rock Creek Parkway and Coal Ridge or Honey Creek Drive. And the current design showed just keeping the existing layout with the one crosswalk on the east side of that intersection. And we're looking at putting in just another crosswalk on the west side of that intersection, and again, extending the median out so that there's a small refuge. It's not large enough to be considered a formal refuge, but it's something. So this would include adding directional curb ramps and the sidewalk area. And the estimated cost is about $16,000. So I just put it all into a table so that you can see all the numbers. Cause there's a lot of variables here with the Coal Creek Drive roundabout versus just lane removal. So this is kind of busy, but you can see, we are coming in a little bit over with the estimates. Because we were budgeted for $5.2 million for this project. So staff recommendation. So for that first intersection, the roundabout, this staff went back and forth on this one. We ultimately decided to recommend it. We do have some maintenance concerns, but we're fairly confident that we're not fairly confident, we are confident we can plow it. But there will be more curbed upkeep, if we ever have to do work in that roundabout in the future when having a single lane and you're trying to close it down. So there are some maintenance concerns. We have heard resident concerns about emergency access through the roundabout. To address that, we would have the drivable curb like we're looking at Coal Creek Drive roundabout. But it would require somebody there to help, guide two lanes of traffic through that intersection.
we ultimately decided to recommend it because we looked at the safety accidents in the last 5 years, and we did have an injury crash of a bicyclist going through there right in that section of road. The bicyclist came into the lane because there was snow in the bike lane and was hit by a car who didn't yield. So there were some rear end crashes, some ice slides, and just DUI. There was one side swipe that we believe possibly could have been prevented with one lane going to this one lane. We also hear that there's a lot of near misses from residents that going to one lane can prevent. So, it's there's a lot that goes into it. It's really just a decision. And there would be no schedule impacts if we made that decision, but we need to get that information to the engineer tomorrow so that they can get started on it, because we will be asking for quite a bit of tight turnaround.
Hey, Christine, before you leave that slide, I really appreciate all the work you guys have put into this. And if I were to step back, because if you're to design this from scratch, would it be one lane or two?
It would be one lane based on the road volumes.
Right. So when we talk about the ice slides, was that into another car, or was that just into the curb?
Oh, I believe they were their own. They were two separate incidents in the same day, and they were single car. Yeah.
Okay.
One of them, it went up on the curb and it messed up the underside, and the other one, I think, just slid out and hit the median.
Okay.
I think it hit a box or something.
No, I appreciate that. This one's hard, right? Yeah. Okay. Anyway, those are just my quick questions. I didn't want to.
Yeah, I will say though, when we ran the analysis, we did find that this turn needed to be 2 lanes, and then this turn needed to be 2 lanes to keep a good flow of traffic. But this did not. So, yeah. Rock Creek Parkway and Coleridge, there's very minimal additional maintenance concerns. Staff ultimately recommended it because it will add visibility with an extra set of the rapid fire blinking, the RRFBs, and beacons, and it will match the rest of the corridor. The rest of the corridor, we've been putting in the double sidewalks, and these folks can have that too. There were 2 accidents in the last 5 years in this intersection, no injuries, no cyclists or pedestrians, and there would be no schedule impacts. So I thought that would be a good thing to do. That's it. So we're just looking for your direction on how you would like us to proceed.
All right. Thanks, Christine. Mm-hmm. Brandon, did you have something you wanted to add? All right. Questions for staff?
I have a couple of quick questions. First, for the drivable curb, I'm assuming that's okay in the event of an emergency, even for low-profile vehicles. They won't have a problem getting up over the curb, correct?
I didn't ask specifically about low-profile vehicles, but it's been used in other municipalities, so I can confirm with the engineer.
Okay, I just want to make sure in the event of an emergency, we don't have somebody high-sided and all of a sudden that is now a 1 lane again.
Makes sense.
I want to make sure that can still handle traffic trying to get out in the event of an emergency.
I think it's a 2-inch curb, so.
I doubt it would.
Yeah, I don't know of any cars that are 2 inches off the ground.
Okay.
But yeah,
It
should be sufficient. And it's the same thing we're proposing at Coal Creek Drive as well.
Okay. Perfect. And then my only other question, and I don't know if you'd know the cost offhand, so if you don't, totally fine. But we did have a resident email us this week asking about possibly raising the crosswalks around the roundabout, and that way it might make it a little bit safer and slow traffic down. Is that something we can look at, and do we know how much that might cost?
Yeah.
So we wouldn't typically recommend raised crosswalks on a road like Rock Creek Parkway. I mean, we will be slowing the speeds down going into the roundabout, but those raised crosswalks, you really have to get down to 15, which is the design speed for a roundabout, but cars accelerate past the roundabout. It would improve pedestrian safety, but there are obviously drawbacks with it. I mean, the number one drawback from a construction standpoint is usually drainage. We can't do drainage around those raised crosswalks. We either have to put in a storm inlet on both sides of it for drainage or put like a large chase drain there. So that's the one drawback. The other drawback's wear and tear vehicles. I mean, any type, it's basically a speed hump is really what it is when you do these raised crosswalks. And they're really meant for more residential type streets than Rock Creek Parkway. It is doable if council decides they want to go in that direction. Cost-wise, we found these raised crosswalks are running closer to about $30,000 each. It might be more for a road like Rock Creek Parkway because of the width. And then the storm drain concerns could significantly increase that cost. So you could be looking at anywhere from $100,000 to $200,000 to do all three legs of the intersection.
Okay, thank you.
And actually, I would add, Brandon, because one thing you've educated me on is with these raised crosswalks, the police and fire have to slow down a lot.
Yeah, that's true.
As opposed to if we went with the speed pillows or something else, they can keep going. So that would be one of the main reasons I'd be avoiding anything like this on a major roadway. So
That's a good point.
I've been listening, Brandon. I really have.
You always do.
Do you have any concerns about just this being kind of like a one-off roundabout that's not consistent with roundabouts that are appearing elsewhere? Like one of the things that I think about is, we want to make sure that our roads are not just something that residents are familiar with, but people that are visiting that aren't familiar with Superior, so it doesn't like scare them, right? Like they need to be universal. They need to be safe for everybody to travel, and having like a 1 into a 2-lane roundabout seems a little out of the ordinary. Any concerns about that?
No. So this leg really isn't changing coming off of 88th. It's staying the same. So you get the 2 lanes that go into 1 lane, the roundabout, and then the right lane goes right. This leg's changing slightly. I mean, we currently have 2 lanes that go around, but by far the heaviest movement from this direction, so especially during rush hour, is going up that 88th Street movement. So there is a slight change in that you can't go straight in this movement, but that's where we got to use striping and signage to affect people. I don't have any concerns with this change here, and this is the biggest change, adding that curb, because it's a single lane going into a single lane. I don't see any situation where cars are going into that area. As Christine mentioned, the recommendation from staff, we went back and forth on. We were really on the fence, but we wanted to bring a recommendation to council. And the reason we recommended it was just, we could have prevented 2 accidents. And so that's where we landed on it, because if one of them was an injury accident and the traffic volume doesn't warrant 2 lanes, so we're not worried about a congestion problem. Will you have to sit longer than you would for 2 lanes? Possibly, 5 seconds, something like that, but it's not such that it creates a traffic delay. But to answer your question directly, Mark, from a usability standpoint, I feel like the changes we're making will make it a little bit more user-friendly. I think currently, if you're out of town, I think the biggest unknown in this roundabout right now is, do I have to yield if I'm in this far right lane? And I think if I ask council, they'd probably have different opinions if they do or not. I do think the way it's signed, you actually have a kind of a free flow right, even though it has the yield teeth there, which is confusing, and a yield sign, but it's striped to be a free flow. So I'm not even sure how Boulder County Sheriff would ticket it if we had an accident in that regard. So I think that needs to be cleared up either way, with yield striping or something yield painted on the road if we make it a full yield, or stripe it such that it's very clear that you don't have to yield from that regard. Sorry, that was a long answer to your question.
I appreciate that. I mean, I know that this is in response to some of the questions that we asked at the last meeting, so I appreciate you coming back with a proposal to address that. I still, in my non-traffic engineer, just kind of anecdotal sense, I don't like 2-lane roundabouts in general. Like, I think the roundabout at Marshall or McCaslin and Main Street is scary. I think the 88th roundabout is unnecessarily big, and I think if the McCaslin and Colton roundabout can be a single lane and handle the volume on McCaslin, I think that the 88th roundabout can function as a single lane roundabout. And if that ends up causing a little bit of a delay in getting through it, I think it ends up being a safer roundabout to just handle just traffic in general, because I think there are a lot of people that are cutting across lanes, and that's really is the side swiping, right? Like that's what we see happening at McCaslin and Main Street, and same thing here on 88th. So, if I was starting from scratch, to Neil's question, starting over the single lane roundabout, I think would make more sense. But I'm fine with the direction that you're recommending here.
And I think Christine touched on this, but it does shorten the pedestrian crossing slightly for both this branch and this leg of the intersection, because you take away that second lane that you would be crossing, so it does shorten it some. We also debated with the design team physically moving the curb here and extending it where it's at, because really bikes are supposed to exit, as an emailer pointed out, but most bikes don't exit, especially comfortable bikers. They ride their bike through the roundabout, which is legal and allowed. But we ultimately made this a bike lane for that reason, to make it a better access for bikes. While it will have some additional maintenance costs when we get into plowing, because we'll have to plow this with our pros team with a 7-foot wide, probably ATV or something small truck to get through there. But it is doable, and that's something we've looked at internally.
Hey, Brandon, just a question, because I've always not been a fan of this merge, get the bikes off the streets for the intersection, because as far as I'm concerned, the bikes are for everybody. But when we talk about e-bikes, we keep clamoring about how they're not allowed on sidewalks. So is this the one case where e-bikes are required to go on sidewalks?
I'm the wrong person to ask.
Right. No, so that's my point, right? Like when we sort of force merge one form of transportation on another, the reason why I don't do it is there's people on the sidewalk, right? And you can't like navigate around them. I mean, our biggest issue with the bikeway, as we've designed it down here, is it's a good wide sidewalk, and then you have this blind turn. And some of the bikers are coming down because they're, along Highway 36, they're going 20 miles an hour, and you can't do that here. So everything we can do to prevent bikes from feeling like they have to get on the sidewalks just to navigate a traffic circle, to me, is a win. And then as we continue to bring more e-bikes into the world, we don't want those on sidewalks, especially the Class 3s, the e-motos.
Can we go to the other intersection, the Coleridge, Honey Creek? So this is the current, and this is the proposed. So I like the addition of the crosswalk here. I think that's a welcome addition here. Just quick question about the kind of striping of, so we've got this part in the bike lane that is striped dark. I don't see anything on this side. I'm not a fan of striping those. Like, I don't like the way that the Indiana Rock Creek Parkway intersection came out, and when we talked about it at the last meeting, that we're not going to be restriping that similarly. So I wouldn't want us to do something similarly confusing and inconsistent. So I'd be in favor of just making this improvement with the crosswalk, not striping the green for the bike crossing.
Yeah, I think we agree with that. We'll remove that striping.
Yeah, but in terms of the actual intersection improvements, I like the intersection improvements. Just let's keep the green striping to a minimum.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I appreciate you guys bringing this back. I asked for it at the last meeting because anybody on that northeast corner, whatever, that top left, who's trying to get off of that bus stop had 3 streets to cross to get back to the other side. So this is, to me, it's long due. And there's no accidents here with pedestrians because they're not running across the street there. They're going and doing the three passes.
And then just final comment on the 88th intersection. Do we have emergency services? I know we've talked about it, but have they seen this design? Have we sent it to the fire district or sent it to the sheriff? Do they agree that in the event of an evacuation, we'd be able to handle all the traffic and move it to 2 lanes?
Yeah.
So we have not, so with the Coal Creek Drive, we put together that, 2-lane analysis. We haven't actually done that here, but we could have that done and share that with fire and police if that's something you guys would like. Yeah, we can definitely do that.
Yeah, I would just like to make sure that the first responders feel comfortable that they would be able to open up the roundabout to handle 2 lanes of traffic in the event of an evacuation.
Or make sure it's part of their plan to have somebody there to help direct 2 lanes of traffic during an emergency.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, we can definitely have them put that together.
Okay.
Yeah, just, I mean, I know council knows this, but just to reiterate, I mean, for residents, I mean, during the Marshall Fire, it wouldn't matter if this was an 8-lane road on Rock Creek Parkway. The bottleneck was Colton Road and then ultimately 36, which got, when they opened up Colton Road to go eastbound in both directions, that solved Rock Creek Parkway. So it wouldn't matter how many lanes we had on Rock Creek Parkway at that time. Even though I know perception is that they were stopped here, that's the issue. But we're very sensitive to those concerns, especially when it comes to evacuation. And just, I mean, this lane is 19 foot wide, and this is a drive over, 6 foot wide there. So, I mean, ultimately we can make it 25 feet without even getting into that bike lane, which easily accommodates 2 cars too. So that's something else we looked at with the design team. But I agree. I mean, we'll share this with Mountain View Fire and Boulder County Sheriff to get their input and thoughts and any concerns they may have.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, just for the sake of kind of completeness to the community and transparency and communication, just that this is something that was considered, is top of mind, and that everybody that will play a role in dealing with an evacuation was properly considered for input. So
do that.
All right. Any additional questions from council? Neil?
Just the last question on the budget slide for slide 18. So you guys are going to go out to bid on this presumably very soon with all these configurations, or basically, I think right now the revised roundabout, the lane removal, but then you're still looking at both the Coal Creek roundabout or not the Coal Creek roundabout. So those will be the 2 things we'll have to look at in
The
February.
plan is to go to bid with the Coal Creek Drive roundabout and then have the bid alternate be the lane removal just at that one intersection.
Okay, and then, the 2 things that you brought up today would be included in both packages.
Correct. It would be part of the original bid set.
And the timeline to come back to us on that?
I'll just add that those will be unit line items. So if we're over budget by 500 grand across the board, we need to cut costs. We could remove those line items without going back out to bid, because we'll have, there are unit costs that were already in there. We'll just remove the quantities, and schedule. I think his next question was schedule.
Yeah, roughly when are you guys thinking of going to bid
Sorry,
and coming back?
When were we going to, March, I think? I think we're going to bid early March, and then construction would then start middle of April.
Got it. That's fantastic.
Well, we would bring the contract to you guys in the middle of April, and we would start construction in the end of April or early May.
Got it. So now you bring up one last question. I apologize. On the roundabout and what we're talking about on the southern bottom half of that roundabout, how will construction be done on that? Since, if you're going to be doing anything that's not striping, is it just going to happen at night?
So that's one of the maintenance concerns, is anytime you have a 1-lane roundabout, you bottleneck yourself on how to do maintenance. But we haven't discussed that with the engineer, but part of the package is we're putting together proposed traffic control plans so that the contractor knows what we expect, so we can definitely make sure that we have a plan in there to keep it open. But there might be some closures, but they would happen at night. If there was ever a closure, we would maintain access.
Got it.
Yeah, and I'll just add, the biggest issue we're going to have construction is we are reconstructing the roadway.
Yep.
So we're going to reconstruct 88th because it's only been done to here.
That's true.
And this is a single lane. So we will be looking at some sort of closure here.
Okay.
I'm a little leery of night work given how close we are to residential houses, but that's something we're looking at, and we'll be talking to contractors and have a better answer when you bring you the construction bids regarding the sequencing.
I mean, for what it's worth, we didn't have Promenade when we shut down 88th 5 years ago. So there are other kind of ways around. They just take a lot longer. Yeah. But having Promenade does provide something.
It's true.
Yeah. Except unless you live on Reliance Circle. So. All right, thank you.
Well, back when we did 88th Street, the detour was to take Dillon to go into Louisville and go around and Castle. So it's shorter. In terms of schedule, so you said come to the board, come to the council in April, start construction. When do we think that everything will be complete?
I think right now we're saying our goal is to get it done before school starts, depending on when we start. But there will be an impact on the front end. If we miss that impact on the front end, there would be an impact on the back end. But our current goal is we're bidding it. I mean, we can bid it as early as February because we're going to be done with this in January design-wise. Once we have a way forward tonight. So we were pretty much done with design. It's just implementing these changes. So the goal is to start in April and be done before school starts in August. That's our goal. There's a lot of work to do. That's our goal.
All right, sounds good. All right, any additional questions?
Just Brandon, if you're already going to first responders to ask about this roundabout, can you ask about the one at Coal Creek Drive too? I know it's a
Yeah, and I
drivable
think
curb
we
and it
talked
should
to
be
them.
fine, but if you're already doing that.
We've shared that one with them,
Okay.
and they specifically looked at it for emergency services to get their trucks around those single lane, not so much the 2-lane, but they have seen the full package, so they've seen
Okay. And
those 2
they're good
lanes,
with it?
but we can reiterate it to them.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Anything further? All right, thanks, Christine. Thank you, Brandon. And we look forward to seeing the contract for approval.
Thank you.
All right, we're on to item 4B, which is our next project update, which is the South Pool project update and discussion.
All right, good evening.
Welcome, Jordan.
I'm Jordan Hayes, project manager for the town, and we are here to update you on the South Pool schematic design. The last time we were here was in November, and town council approved us making, or I guess building a new pool. So we have some changes to the bathhouse from kind of those early concept designs that you've seen, and also some changes to the pool itself. And I'll let Mary present those to you and we can answer any questions.
Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks. Mary Shambach, project manager with BRS Architecture. Quick update on the operating costs that we have spoken about before. Those results are forthcoming. So we'll provide another update at another time for the sustainability issue and the operating costs that we're investigating for the pool. So tonight we have an update on the floor plan that's been developed in schematic design phase for the pool and the bathhouse. So I'm just going to walk you through that. Figure out how to zoom in. Here we go. So the updated layout of the lobby involves a brand new control desk, the check-in desk for staff, and also provides a direct access path out to the pool deck for any patrons coming in. So they'd come in and check in the desk and can continue. We have planned this desk out with staff to seat two people and have a lot of storage built into it along this back wall. So you'll see we are kind of extending some of the existing wall there and redoing the entrances to the locker room. There will be a gate separating the desk from the corridor, and we also have planned a small staff workspace behind that desk as well. The men's locker room, now located on the right side of the lobby here, has one shower with a changing area and bench behind a shower curtain. It has an ADA stall as well as a second toilet and 2 urinals, and it also has a sink area with 2 sinks and a new door that will exit onto the pool deck there. This provides space for us to create a chemical room that is separate from the mechanical room for the pool mechanical equipment, enlarging the chemical storage to suit the needs of the new equipment, and maintaining the small chemical closet that's existing as well. Also maintaining the existing electrical room. We're not planning to move the walls of that room at all. The pool mechanical room, as a part of this facility, is taking over a certain square footage from the existing locker room, and that will help expand and give more space for the equipment in that room. All of the doors, we are planning to replace all of them with new doors since they're not in great condition. So the doors and frames to these spaces will also all be new. On the left side of the plan, we've reconfigured the women's locker room on this side to also include space for a storage and janitor closet that is accessible easily to both locker rooms and the lobby, which will have a mop sink inside of it and plenty of storage space for cleaning supplies and anything staff will need to store there. The women's room will now have down the corridor here will open to a toilet area. We have one ADA stall and 3 standard stalls. We have a sink area with 3 different sinks. And we also have 1 shower provided in that locker room as well, with a changing area, as well as a nice bench space in there. Again, direct access exiting onto the pool deck from that locker room. And we've also included the family changing room here, so that will also be accessed directly off of the pool deck. Once you've gone through and checked in, you can go in and use the family changing room. It will also have a shower, a sink, and a toilet in that room as well, with a bench and changing area. The guard office changes here will be mostly in finishes and casework. The size is staying the same, but we will be updating all of the casework and appliances in that space to make it a better layout for staff there. This is a large storage room, which is mostly remaining as is. Any questions on the floor plan before I move to the pool?
I have a quick question about the 3 different sinks. Will they be at different elevations so kids can wash their hands, or will there be just one of those prefab metal stools that they can step onto if it's all one height, or for ADA accessibility?
So the entire counter will be at ADA height, which is 34 inches, and that's standard that we do in all public restrooms. We can certainly provide the stool for any kids to use rather than lowering one. We find it a little more useful for everyone if we just add the stool there.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Do we have any thoughts on, I love these updates, by the way, just starting off there. On the guard room, I don't know how the door swings currently, if it swings out or if it swings in, but just in terms of like visibility for the pool from the guards, whether there's the possibility of like expanding the windows, or, I know that the guards hang out in the guard room, and there's, obviously guards on the deck that are providing appropriate supervision of everybody that's in the pool. But just a thought, do we want to do anything to kind of like increase the visibility from the guards to the pool?
Yeah, we can certainly look at increasing some glazing there in that area. The new door there will have, full glazing in it as well. But if we need to, we'll kind of work through that with staff and see if they want to increase visibility out of there, and certainly look at replacing all that glass or possibly expanding it.
Okay.
It's certainly doable on that wall.
Thanks.
Yeah. Next, we just have an update to the new pool layout itself. It's largely the same as the concept you saw before, but has been a little further developed. So this is the layout of the new water slide with runout, which will be on the north side of the pool deck here. So this is a stair that comes up, and the platform at the top, and the runout portion here at the bottom. So we will be redoing the landscaping and deck in that area to kind of accommodate where this slide is shown. Then we have the 0 depth entry area here. All of these circles and everything you see in here are the play features. This circles around it show the splash area of those spray features. So some of these are small geysers, some are arches. There's also, this here is a vertical play feature that will also incorporate a small toddler slide in that feature as well. And we have pulled back some of the walls that were here before, separating the lap lanes from the larger pool, so it's a little more open here. However, there's still a wall that will separate the current channel, and that has, you can see some geysers and spray features off of that as well. There's also, we plan to reuse the climbing wall that is currently at that pool and relocate it here. And you have stairs accessing the lap lanes in the bottom corner here next to an ADA lift. Any comments, discussion points for the pool here?
What's the plan with the rest of the deck? Is the deck going to get replaced as well?
The entire
Entirely?
deck will be replaced as a part of this, since we'll be chopping it up so much.
Right.
So it will all be new concrete and with some new landscaping kind of as needed to make that look nice. And of course, sorry, I forgot, the splash pad as well. So that will also be all new concrete in there. And this is the new 600 square foot splash pad. And all of these little features here are a variety of low and high spray features there.
And right now, the plan is for the existing playground to just remain as is. It's in good condition, we think?
Yes, so there was a recent assessment and it was found to be in good condition. We did reach out to a playground designer who is doing the design for a community park playground, just to give us kind of a ballpark price on what it would cost if we replace the playground and the poured-in place that's there in that little area. I want to say it's like, oh gosh, I shouldn't guess how many square feet it is, maybe 1,000 square feet. And it would be around $100,000, probably a little more than that for like a nicer playground equipment situation there.
Okay.
But right now the plan is to leave it for budgetary reasons.
All right. I understand that. I respect that. I'm also open to, if we're spending all this money on a completely new pool and new bathhouse or remodeled bathhouse, if it makes sense to redo the playground at the same time rather than tearing it up in 5 years and then potentially like impacting kind of the improvements that we just made. Maybe the time to do it is now. So, but don't want to delay the project, but I'd be open to it.
Okay.
Just to quiet, because I forgot, is the splash pad inside that fence or outside the fence?
It is inside the existing fence, but we'll reconfigure it as needed to make it work with a new shade structure in that area as well.
Okay.
And I understand that you said the kind of the operating costs and sustainability elements will come later, but just as a concern for me, there's going to be a lot of concrete, a lot of new concrete, and so I'm curious how we're looking at reducing carbon emissions associated with the volume of concrete that we're pouring. So that could be incorporated into your sustainability updates. That'd be super appreciated. Thank you.
We'll do that, thank you. Just to wrap up here, there's also the schedule, project schedule, just as a reminder of where we are in this process. So we have completed schematic design, which is this green circle. We have started design development now, which we will be wrapping up in February, and then finishing our construction documents ready to submit for bid and permit by the end of March. So the plan, also as an update, the North Pool drawings are being submitted for permit this week. So that permit review process will begin, and both sets of drawings will be ready to bid as of beginning of April.
Great. And we're replacing all the furniture that's there, the existing deck chairs and tables and all that
Yes, that is the plan right now.
at both north and south.
Yes. Mhm. We won't leave any of the old stuff.
Just want to make sure. I'm asking the questions.
You can have all of it.
Fantastic. That would be my wooey defense.
And that wraps up our update. So are there any other further questions?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. Actually, I really like what you've done. It looks fantastic. Jordan, I'm still concerned about how much over budget are we on this project?
So right now we're showing the budget around 5.8 million. So our overall budget is 5 million for the project. So we are going to have to look into hopefully have some savings on some other CIP projects. One of the main ones that could make up for some of the budget shortfall here is the community center structural and drainage project, which it's maybe not as bad as we thought. And so we're thinking we may save even up to $500,000 on that one, which we could then use towards this project. But yeah, there is still a budget shortfall there.
Yeah, we're looking at possible overages on Rock Creek Parkway. Overages on this. One thing I don't want to skimp on, and Brandon, I know you're going to work your magic and do everything you possibly can, but that community building needs a lot of work in addition to the foundation system. I don't want to skimp at all on that building. That building has areas where you can see right through the concrete block wall. Where we hold First Friday Coffee, you can see right through the wall, not through the windows, through the wall. I want to make sure that we do our due diligence and we make sure that building is taken care of and not skimping on that just to throw more money in a pool because we're creating more and more overages to make one project work and the other project's going to require another tax increase down the line in order to make that work. So I want to be very, very cautious about how we go forward with this. It's a beautiful building. It's got all the amenities on it. Everybody's really excited about it, but I want to just remind people the costs that are going into this are substantial, and it's something I want to make sure that's given all thought to make sure we manage the money properly for this town.
Absolutely. And to clarify a little bit on the structural and drainage at the community center, the reason that they're looking at potentially about a $500,000 savings is we kind of were planning on worst case scenario based on the movement that the engineers see out there. So they've been doing some further investigations, coring in the building and things like that. And it's looking like it's not as bad as we thought. So they are going to address the piers and the foundation under specifically that area in Longs Peak. So they're going to look at that, but there are some other areas of the building that they've looked into that don't require the piers that they originally thought we would have to put in. So that's where a lot of that savings is going to come from.
Okay, great, thank you.
And we will have more information on that pretty soon.
Great, I'd appreciate that, thank you.
So from a budget perspective, I mean, we share your concerns, Jason. I mean, we have $20 million of projects that'll be bidding February to April. So we're going to find out very quickly where we're at within budget. I mean, 10% overage is $2 million. 10% underage is $2 million. So we're trying to, I mean, the good news is we'll have all that information pretty much at the same time to make these decisions. If we have to pull from something or scale something back, we know what project it has to come from and how we make it all work together. So it's the one good news of them all coming together at the same time.
No,
And all of these are based on engineers' estimates too, the costs we presented, Rock Creek Parkway. This one, and not knocking engineers, but the market's going to tell us what the projects actually cost. And our goal is to hopefully get ahead of the market and bid these projects during the slow season to get better pricing. That's what we're really hoping for this year.
Okay, just, being in the trades, being in the construction profession, I understand how things can go sideways very, very quickly and how costs can go overrun. And next thing, you're going to come back and someone's got to ask for even more money to get something back on track. The quicker you can get it done, fantastic. I just always want to be mindful of the money we're spending for the town is the taxpayers' money, and that's something that's very, very important. And I want to always be a good steward of that going forward, that we're not misallocating it just for something shiny and pretty because we want it. Is it going to work? Do we have the money to do it going forward? And is it going to be less of a maintenance cost in the future? So just want that to be said.
Okay.
Appreciate it, Brandon. Thank you. And Jordan, thank you.
I mean, I share those concerns, but at the end of the day, like the voters approved this sales tax ballot measure for us to invest in our parks, pools, and playgrounds and roads. And so that's what we're doing. And, with inflation, the thing that I've seen for the past 10 years up on this dais is that every year you put off a project, it's just going to get more expensive. So I'm really encouraged I love the design. I think it's fantastic. I'm really excited about kind of using the existing structure and then kind of reimagining it in the way that you've done so. So that's a great design. And I think this new pool is going to be spectacular. So I think that this is the pool that the community has asked for and deserves. And now it's our job to execute on it and make it happen. So I don't have any concerns with this moving forward. So as far as I'm concerned, full speed ahead. Thank you. Keep us posted on where we're at in terms of scheduling and budget. And
We will. We'll certainly provide further updates. So thank you very much.
Yep, sorry, and just one more thing, just so we do discuss it a little bit. If you notice that this version does not include the heated alcove, so we try to provide some justification for why we didn't think that was a great idea. 3 to 6 degrees warmer than the regular pool for over $100,000. The cost benefit there. So if anyone has a strong opinion on that, now would be the time.
Yeah.
But if you don't, great.
No, I agree. I think that the alcove, we're not getting our money's worth. And, we had the discussion previously about hot tubs and how that wasn't going to work. So we looked at the alcove as a kind of potential compromise, but still it just doesn't make sense for this design. So.
But
Great,
I wanna
that's
say
what I was
thank you.
hoping you'd say.
To say thank you, and I appreciate that, you heard the council discussion last time you went back, you did the analysis, looked at it and said, yeah, it doesn't make sense, so thank you.
Great, thank you.
All right, any additional questions for staff? All right.
All right, thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you, Jordan. Thank you, Mary. All right. We are now moving on to our consent agenda. We have 2 proclamations. So why don't we read, and Ilya is here as well. I know he wants to say a couple words. So why don't we have Ilya come up and introduce the Kindness Week proclamation. Welcome, former trustee Ilya Grigoris.
Thank you.
Dr. Grigoris.
I spent 10 and a half years up there, and what I see is like tremendous civility. That's not how it was in the old days, I can tell you that.
You caught us on a good night.
And also, this proclamation on kindness is not going to add to your budget in any way, shape, or form. I think we're good. 3 years ago, on Good Friday, there was a young lady that found a wallet at a grocery store, and even though she was down on her luck, which is important, decided to return it to the owner of the. And he, rather than just saying thank you, and just he decided to go the extra mile, and tracked her down, found her, and long story short, he went above and beyond, and that story got picked up by the local news. It got picked up by CBS. It just kind of grew. It became viral in a lot of ways. And that became, he decided to form a nonprofit called Kindness Worldwide. He had this vision, and he thinks big. His name is Kevin Smith. And I actually produced a movie called For Such a Time as This, which is the story of how Kindness Worldwide came to be. This came out a couple of months ago. How a small act of kindness can create a global movement. And his vision and his idea was that every town, every municipality, every state, every country in the world can embrace kindness worldwide. And he asked me to be the ambassador to Greece, so I represent, Kindness Worldwide in Greece, and I brought Kindness Worldwide to Greece as well. But then I thought, so just so you know, what started, it's just that this small thing has grown. It started in New York, Pennsylvania, and now it's grown and blossomed. They're ambassadors throughout the world. In November, Governor Shapiro actually officially endorsed, so the state of Pennsylvania has endorsed Kindness Worldwide. And the goal, of course, is that every governor in every state, this is not a political thing because kindness is free, and we live in a world that could use kindness. So I talked to Matt and I thought, wouldn't it be great if the town of Superior becomes the first town in the state of Colorado to embrace Kindness Worldwide? So that's why we're here. And it's not just a proclamation. The idea is that we actually start to envision a community that actually puts kindness first. And just to give you an idea, York, Pennsylvania, which was the first capital of the United States, I didn't even know that back when the founding fathers embraced it. It's been like 2 or 3 years now. Their crime rate has gone down by 60%. We have an amazing man, a police commissioner, believe it or not, who goes to homes, knocks on the door and says, I'm here to write your citation. And people are like, what did I do? And I'm like, no, this is a kindness citation. Because somebody in the community has volunteered or nominated somebody else because they know they do a lot. There's so many people, even in Superior, that do so much good work behind the scene that nobody knows about it. So our hope is that this isn't just one proclamation on a Monday night here in January, but this becomes a movement and that we are the example, starting here in Superior, and we can begin to grow that in Boulder County and beyond. So thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members, for embracing this. It's an easy win for everybody. So I appreciate it. And thank you for, I'm proud to be in Superior and proud that we're the first town to do it in Colorado. So thank you.
Well, we appreciate you bringing this to our attention and making the suggestion, and happy to have this on our agenda for tonight. So I'll read it, and then we can move along with voting on the consent agenda, and then we'll take a picture with you.
Kevin asked me to take a picture.
Yeah.
I have to do that.
So this is a proclamation of Kindness Week worldwide, whereas kindness is an expression of love that brings out the best in others and in ourselves with overwhelmingly positive implications for health and broader peace and well-being. Whereas kindness is the heartbeat of the world that, like a life vest, keeps us afloat. It makes us believe in ourselves, instills hope, builds self-esteem, and fosters connectedness. Whereas experiencing and performing acts of kindness are known to provide greater happiness and optimism reduced feelings of helplessness and depression, and an increased sense of self-worth. Whereas acts of kindness often inspire others to pay it forward in meaningful ways, thereby having significant coattails in which their influence extends well beyond the initial acts themselves. Whereas no act of kindness is too small to make a difference and change a life, and anyone can make a lasting impact and change the world through kind actions. Whereas as humanity's greatest asset, kindness is a choice that should be encouraged, recognized, rewarded, and celebrated to achieve more of it locally and beyond. Now, therefore, in conjunction with World Kindness Day, the mayor and town council of the town of Superior hereby proclaims Kindness Week worldwide, effective November 7th through the 14th, 2026. During this time, individuals, families, schools, businesses, faith-based and service organizations, and all community constituents and ecosystems are encouraged to personify the theme, see the good, be the good, go the extra mile for kindness in various ways, limited only by the bounds of imagination and creativity. Through this proclamation and broad community call to action, all are challenged to perform kind acts, big and small, and subsequently pay it forward for the collective betterment of one another and for the greater good. All right. We have one other, why don't we do our picture now, and then we'll do our other proclamation. In addition to our kindness proclamation, we also have a proclamation in the town council of the town of Superior declaring January as Radon Action Month, so from one spectrum to the other. Whereas radon is an invisible, odorless radioactive gas that threatens the health of our residents and their families, it is not kind. Whereas radon gas is a group 1 carcinogen known to cause lung cancer in humans with prolonged exposure, and whereas the Colorado Rocky Mountain region has been ranked zone number 1, an area with the highest radon potential possible by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, and whereas Colorado residential radon data has shown 50% of Colorado homes tested as being at or above the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency radon action level of 4.0 picocuries per liter of air. And whereas any home in Superior, Colorado may have elevated levels of radon, even if the homes in the same neighborhood do not. And whereas supporting recommended radon practices and policies to reduce radon exposure is important to protect our community's health and welfare. And whereas testing for radon is simple and inexpensive, whereas identified radon problems can be fixed, and whereas Boulder County Public Health, the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, and the American Lung Association are supporting efforts to encourage Americans to test their homes for radon, have elevated levels of radon reduced, and have new homes built with radon-resistant features. Now, therefore, I, Mark Lasis, Mayor of Superior, and the Superior Town Council do hereby proclaim January 1st through the 31st of 2026 official Radon Action Month in Superior, Colorado. All right. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Okay, we got a motion from Councilmember Foster.
Second.
Second from Mayor Pro Tem Serbu. And roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Miller?
Yes.
Councilmember Craycraft?
Yes.
Councilmember Foster?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Serbu?
Yes.
Mayor Lasis?
Yes.
Councilmember Shaw?
Yes.
Councilmember Cowish?
Yes.
All right, passes unanimously. And we are done with our consent agenda. Last thing on the agenda is the Zarius concept plan. It's almost 8 o'clock, so why don't we take a 10-minute break, and we'll be back at 8:05.
This is power through.
All right, we are back and we're on to item 6, which is our regular agenda. And we have one item tonight, which is the Zaharias concept plan presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Renee Stavros, Planning and Building Director for the town. This evening, we have the development team from Garrett Company and their other team members talking about a concept plan for the Zaharias property, just to familiarize ourselves. For anyone who may not know where the Zaharias property is, it's just south of Highway 36, east of 88th Street, north of the Hodgson Harris Reservoir. I can't ever say that right. It's approximately 22 acres, and their proposal includes about a 350-unit apartment complex. And I will let them show you all of the things, all of the good work that they've done so far, and what they're proposing this evening. Colin?
Thanks, Renee. Good evening. My name is Colin Waterworth. With me tonight is our Senior Director of Acquisition, Jordan Reisman, and our civil engineer, Jim. Our address is 5075 South Syracuse Street, Denver, Colorado, 80237. Thank you for having us here tonight to present and gather feedback on our conceptual development proposal for the Zaharias property. First, just a little bit about the Garrett Companies. The Garrett Companies is a national multifamily developer headquartered in Denver, Indianapolis, and Nashville. About 50% of the 350 plus employees are based in Denver. We have delivered over 22,000 apartments across the country in 22 states. And we have completed over 25 projects in Colorado market up and down the Front Range. The Garrett Companies has an award-winning culture and has won numerous awards for best places to work and being a top developer. Here are some examples of some completed projects, some community exteriors, example interiors, and amenities that are common in our communities, including a clubhouse, fitness center, pool, spa, community workspaces, grilling areas with dining, just to name a few of those amenities. Who we provide housing for is part of who we are as a company. Our companies generally provide market rate attainable housing for earners making 75 to 100% AMI. The housing typologies that we build fall into the types called out by the housing study as missing middle housing types. We build townhomes, low-rise apartments, and a housing type that falls in between townhomes and apartments, which we plan to propose here. I will detail this housing type later in the presentation. This graph shows who we anticipate to live in this development. This is based on a 350-unit project and an analysis of existing properties along the Front Range we've developed and manage. We anticipate a significant number of occupants who live at the Zaharias property to work in the following fields: medical services, construction, education, government, military, retail, and restaurant industry. So why do we want to develop in Superior? Great community character. Superior has an emphasis on multimodal transportation, a great downtown, is very outdoorsy, and a tight-knit community. Open space and access to the mountains. Excellent schools. Proximity to employment, including Boulder, downtown Denver, and the 36 corridor. And based on the town's planning documents and our own research, we feel there is a need for attainable housing. These housing statistics have been pulled from the town's planning documents, except the last one, which is from CoStar. Nearly 1/3 of Superior households are cost burdened. Apartments have seen rents grow 56% since 2012. Seniors are the fastest growing demographic in Superior. Superior is primarily an out-commuting community. Superior's population is primarily married households with school-aged children, and vacancy rates for apartments which are between 6% and 7%, which justify new construction. Our team has been following the town's housing strategy and comp plan efforts for about a year. We have participated in comp plan meetings, open houses, and we have watched the public hearings and staff updates. The following excerpts are pulled directly from the town's 2025 housing strategies document. Objective number 1, increase housing choice. Strategy 1.1, remove regulatory barriers to support the production of various housing types, such as missing middle housing, senior housing, multifamily housing, and mixed-use housing. Strategy 1.3, promote the development of missing middle housing. Objective 2, support and promote affordable housing efforts. Strategy 2.2, action 2.21, incentivize affordable housing development through density and height bonuses and parking and landscape reductions. Objective number 3, remove housing barriers for those that encounter them. This speaks not only to how the site is developed, but how it's designed and managed. The Garrett Companies accommodates those who face housing barriers. On the design side, we hire an ADA consultant to review plans to ensure our projects are fully ADA compliant, and we hire bilingual leasing staff. And lastly, how housing strategies relate to the comprehensive plan. Strategies that could result in housing development within the town will be further considered through the upcoming comprehensive plan process to determine appropriate locations, if any. The draft comprehensive plan identifies the Zaharias property as an appropriate location for housing development. It is opportunity area number 5, as shown on this slide. Draft plan recommendation recommends a primary land use of medium density residential with a density between 15 and 20 dwelling units per acre. Here is a site aerial. The site is identified with the yellow star. It is bound by 36 to the north, South 88th Street to the west, and the Hodgson Harris Reservoir to the south. These yellow dotted lines tie back to the comp plan and shows multimodal access to the RDT station at Rock Creek Parkway. This is a zoomed in aerial of the site. The site's 22 acres. It is currently vacant land. It is zone PD or RAC, with a RAC land use designation, I should say, which is Regional Activity Employment Center. And we are proposing an R2A medium density residential zone with an 18 dwelling unit per acre max. So what are our Zaharias project goals? 1, create a mixed income community serving 60% to 100% AMI. Provide multiple housing options to serve a wide range of renter demographics, including families. Our plan provides 50 plus 3-bedroom homes, and this site provides walkable and bikeable access to the Monarch School campus. Seniors. Our plan provides 1-level living in 2 distinct housing types. One type is a 1-level townhouse alternative perfect for seniors, and the second is within the elevator-served building. Our development provides an option for relatives of those living in Rock Creek Ranch to live within walking distance to their children and grandchildren. Working professionals. Our target rents for this project will fall in line with area AMI, so residents are not cost burdened by their housing. And income restricted affordable renters. We are proposing 20% of our homes to be income restricted for earners making 60 and 80% area median income. These affordable units can be occupied by families, seniors, or working professionals. Our affordable units will be spread across the development and all housing types. Someone who is picking up their child's friend, for example, from an affordable home would never know that is income restricted. They will have the same quality and finish level as the market rate homes. Then number 3, align our development proposal with the town's comp plan and housing goals. And 4, create a great resident experience through thoughtful design, amenities, and community spaces. This is our conceptual site plan. The edges or frontage of the site have a neighborhood-like setting with 2-story buildings and 30 to 40-foot setbacks to the west and north. We are proposing a 100-foot buffer adjacent to the Hodgson Harris Reservoir. Beyond the buffer, we plan to propose a community trail and overlook with interpretive signage. This plan shows a trail within the 100-foot buffer, which we plan to relocate after hearing from OSAC reps in the neighborhood meeting we had last week. As we move to the interior of the site, a single 4-story building is introduced, which frames the central amenity area, including a clubhouse shown in red, pool, spa, grilling areas with dining, and game lawn. Other site amenities include a dog park and a kids' playground, as noted on this slide. The closest existing residence in Rock Creek Ranch to the 4-story building is roughly 600 feet away. Our plan preserves the existing wetlands to the east, which helps provide a natural setting as a part of a visual front door from Highway 36, as well as a substantial setback of over 350 feet from the closest proposed residence to the highway. Access to the site is provided along South 88th Street. The northern access will be fully signalized intersection. We have a second full turn access point, which leads to the clubhouse in the center of the site. And the southern access on this plan is proposed as an emergency vehicle access only. We are targeting a parking ratio of 1.75 to 2 parking spaces per home. The 2-story buildings self-park with an integrated garage for each apartment, and each garage has a tandem space behind the garage allocated to the same apartment as the garage. The surface parking on the plan primarily serves the 4-story building and guest parking. We will provide EV charging on the property and are planning for an all-electric project. All parking needed for the development will be provided on-site. Overall, our proposed density of about 16 dwelling units per acre is appropriate for the site and allows us to achieve a livable and affordable community, and is in balance with the surrounding neighborhood context. This chart shows our proposed rent levels for the development relative to AMI. Starting with our most affordable units, 5% of the units will be income restricted at 60% AMI rent levels. 15% of units will be priced between 60 and 70% AMI. 15% of the units will be restricted at 80% AMI rent levels. This represents the town's affordable housing requirement. 25% of units will be priced between 70 and 80% AMI, and 35 will be priced between 80 and 90, which leaves 5% of units priced between 90 and 100% AMI levels. 95% of the units of this development will be priced below 90% AMI rent levels. This 2-story building type is the predominant building on our conceptual site plan. It features front doors, rear-loaded garages, and is roughly 35 feet tall. Here's the layout of the 2-story building type. This graphic is intended to show how the building lives. Each apartment has a dedicated garage with direct access into the living space and its own front door leading to the outside. The front entries are noted by green and orange arrows. First-level apartments have a garage and living space all on one level with no stairs, which is why it's a great housing option for seniors. Please note the orange garage on this slide because it ties into the next slide because it serves the upstairs second-level unit. This shows how the second level of the 2-story building lives. The resident comes through their dedicated garage or front door and upstairs into the living space. This is the concept elevation for the 4-story building type noted on the site plan. This is a secure access elevator served building. It is roughly 57 feet tall. Introducing a second building type to the development allows us to provide additional housing options and deeper affordability to serve a wider range of residents. Here's a bird's eye view of the rendering. This is a bird's eye view rendering of our conceptual site plan, which shows scale and massing of our plan. This is a view looking southeast. A view looking northeast, and a view looking southwest. Here's a site section showing how our proposed building pad is sitting lower than 88th Street and the Rock Creek Ranch single-family homes to the west. Note in this section how our 4-story roof line is about even with the roof line of the single-family homes and a significant setback to Rock Creek Ranch. This section shows the relationship between Highway 36, the wetlands, and our 4-story building. Our proposed building pad is about level with Highway 36. When evaluating a site for development, we want to make sure that supporting activities and amenities are close by for convenient multimodal access. As you can see on this slide, there are a number of grocery store anchored retail centers and other retail options within a mile or less of the site. This slide shows access to schools and recreation. This site will feed into Monarch School Campus, which is a half mile directly to the north, providing walkable and bikeable access for children who live at the property. The site also provides great access to a number of parks, trails, and open space. And you can also see the trail that we're proposing on site there as part of this graphic. The current designated land use for the property is Regional Activity Center, or RAC. This has been the land use designation for about 40 years. The existing allowable land uses are a mix of commercial, office, and technology. These allowable uses are no longer in tune with Superior's planning strategy, and the land has not been marketable under the RAC land uses, mainly due to a lack of access to Highway 36. The existing allowable height is 120 feet, and open space is a 20% minimum. With our proposal, we are planning to reduce the height limit by half to a 60-foot maximum and double the open space requirement to 40% or more. In summary, we think we are meeting our Zaharias project goals. Our proposal meets the goals of the 2025 housing study. It increases housing choice by providing multiple housing types. We are proposing 20% of the units to be income restricted. It meets the goals of the draft comprehensive plan. The Zaharias property is identified as an opportunity area. We're proposing medium density at 16 DUs per acre and multimodal access. And the site has multimodal access to transit and supporting amenities. For us, the next steps in the process are to continue to collect and incorporate feedback from tonight, the neighborhood meeting we conducted last week, and from town staff, and ultimately work towards a PD amendment submittal. Thank you very much. And Jordan and I and our team would be happy to take any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Questions from council?
Questions. I was not able to attend the community feedback or the listening session, so I'd be curious on your take on what feedback you heard from the community.
So feedback was sort of all over the board. There were some people who understood the proposal and supported it. There were others with concerns. And then folks from OSAC were there as well, just to help collaborate and improve the plan by and large. I think it was a really successful neighborhood meeting. And I think, it's just the very beginning of the process to reach out and, start getting that feedback. But all in all, I thought it was successful.
Okay, great, thank you. I know there's a fairly large prairie dog colony on this property. So with your proposed development, how do you envision addressing prairie dogs on the property?
Yeah, great question. So already we're starting to reach out and find out who could potentially take these prairie dogs. I think that's going to be the challenge. We're also tracking down a consultant to help with that, track down the costs. There's a lot of due diligence to do there. So we're really just getting that effort started now. We do have the prairie dog playbook, and we're analyzing that and just trying to, work with OSAC and the town, as best we can to find, an amenable solution to the prairie dog colony.
Great. I'm glad that OSAC shared the prairie dog playbook with you. A lot of concerns that I've heard from residents is around the increase in traffic. And given that widening 88th is probably not in the cards, so how, at this point, without a traffic study being completed, so I acknowledge that.
Sure.
How do you envision handling the increase in traffic, especially with so many kids riding their bikes and walking to school to go to Monarch?
Yeah, absolutely. We heard the stories in the neighborhood meeting. And so we're taking that very seriously. I think one thing that we did take away from the neighborhood meeting, though, is that this problem really exists today. While we don't want to contribute to that problem, we also don't think that should preclude development of this site. This site does have zoning. It is in the town of Superior. It's an original site in the PD, which contemplated development. So while that's an issue, and we plan to face that head on, we do realize that the site's zoned today, right? And somebody could build a 120-foot office tower if they wanted to, which would have traffic as well. So while we do understand that, we're definitely compassionate for the stories that we heard. They were pretty powerful. People talking about being jammed up in traffic during the Marshall Fire evacuation. I mean, it definitely resonated with our team, and we definitely plan to take that seriously. But at the same time, this is the only access this site has, right? We've got the Hodgson Harris Reservoir to the south. We got Highway 36, to the northeast. So to your point, we're going to do our traffic study. We're going to go through, the proper design process and really make sure that we're addressing that. But at the same time, I mean, that was one of our takeaways was, this is really a problem today. So it's not a problem that we're creating, but want to help find a solution to it.
And while we're on the subject of the reservoir, that reservoir, as I understand it, is used for agriculture irrigation water. So it's a very precious water source for growing foods that we eat locally. So I understand that you've got that 100-foot buffer, but what other steps are you taking to mitigate stormwater from getting into that reservoir and doing things to that we don't want?
Yeah, that's a great question for our civil engineer, Jim, if you want to take that one, Jim.
Sure, Jim Brostovich, Civil Resources. So you'll see here, there's a detention pond proposed at the northeast corner here. That'll take about half the site. So all the runoff from the parking lot and the building and everything will go into that pond. There's also a pond on 88th Street at the southwest corner of this exhibit here. That is actually has capacity for this site, and the town actually stubbed in a storm sewer to accommodate about half of this site. So between those two ponds, all the runoff from the developed areas will go into one of those two ponds. Neither of those ponds go into the reservoir. They go around the reservoir and discharge into Rock Creek. Okay. And I'll actually add a little bit of color on the pedestrian, the routes to school. That's one of the reasons the south entrance here is going to be emergency only. It's probably not shown exactly right on this. We're also going to look very closely at how these entrances are designed to make the sidewalk the priority versus having you go down onto the road and, you know, having pedestrians have to walk across the road. We're going to have the sidewalks elevated so the cars have to slow down. That's one of the things we will incorporate into a final plan.
Great, thank you. And then my last question right now is, you mentioned all-electric units, which is fantastic. I'm curious at this point, what other green building elements or green building certifications you'd be planning to pursue at this point in your concept?
Yeah, good question. So I think by and large, our focus has been affordability and not trying to add cost to the project so we can accomplish that goal. So I also noticed that the town has done the right thing. They've adopted, the 2021 IECC, which provides for very efficient buildings. I understand maybe the suggestion is that we go further. And, at this stage, we haven't evaluated those options. Not to say that we can't, but again, really trying to target that affordability as, one of our chief goals for this project.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Others?
Yeah, I'll go. And I appreciate, because I was at the concept presentation last week. I live, I'm not quite in the grayed out area, but you can almost see my house. So I live really close to this area. So I've witnessed all the different concept plans. I've been here on this dais for a few different concept plans, different discussions. They've all evolved, over time. I think everybody's trying to figure out how to leverage this parcel for development and sort of squeeze it into this area. This is by far the most dense one we've ever seen. I find it actually interesting. 2 years ago, the state sort of mandated transit-oriented development near the bus stop, the BRTs and the train stops, and they wanted to see 13 to 15 units per acre, which is effectively what you're targeting. But their point was you can manage that because you're near, basically public transportation. Here you're not. The RTD station is a mile and a half away. I know because I try to get there, and I never can. I'm always driving to that stop with my scooter, so I take my scooter on the bus, but I never have enough time, right? So the 600 odd cars here are going to exit out on 88th Street. So I have a long list of things. I'm going to just try to hit a couple of them. And one thing I do want to emphasize, I was at the session last week, is the traffic gets backed up on 88th. That is not the town of Superior's fault. It's something we're living with because of Louisville. Louisville designed two really big schools on a dead-end street, and now the rest of us are dealing with that, and hopefully that gets solved in the next couple of years. And and I think you're taking the right path, right? This is a problem that you're not. It's a collective problem, right? And right now, the Red Tail Ridge and the development happening there, hopefully that fixes that. But it is something that we all have to live with, and it's effectively something that Louisville offloaded on us to live through right now. But when we think about 600 cars, no one's going to want to go to the traffic light. They're going to go down south. So you're going to have to tell us how you're going to manage that traffic. exit paths, right turn only lanes, those aren't included in here. So how are those going to get managed? Otherwise, we're backing traffic up in both directions for people trying to turn left or right. Especially, because Mohi starts at 8:30, Monarch K8 starts at like 8:05, right? Like, so traffic volume on here can be peak. If you've got 300 homes, two people per home, 600 people, a lot of those people probably work at those same times. So how's that traffic going to get manifested in here? I know you're working on a traffic study, but what we're going to really truly want to understand is how that actually works in practice. And then I start thinking about things, and Jim addressed one of them with the bikeway. We invested $1 million in that bikeway to get, to connect all these things together. The last thing we want to do is sort of undermine that and make it a car-focused transit route, because right now, one of the best things that's happened in the last 2 years is way more kids are riding their bikes to school. If you go back 6 years ago, there was a bus that took everybody to Monarch K8 and Monarch High School. That bus is gone. So a lot more kids are having a ride, and a lot of parents are driving, again, increasing the traffic. So what we don't want to do is make people want to get back in their cars. The 4-story building, I think some of the feedback was, let's find a way to push it closer to the highway, but at the same time, there's no sound wall. When we talk about quality of life, why is there no sound wall here? We talked about another project at 76th Street, and one of the things that came up here, it's right behind the CDOT sand parking lot, and there's no sound wall there. Dumpster locations, where are those going to be? We have very high wind days. The last thing we want to see is uncovered dumpsters blowing trash into the reservoir. Let's see, who's paying for the light? Up at that intersection of Promenade, it's actually not a traffic light, it's a pedestrian crossing light. And if anybody's going to turn that into a traffic light, we need to know who's paying for it. It shouldn't have to necessarily be the residents of Superior right now. The dog park, well, a couple people had a little confused because there's another dog park just about, like here. So it's a long walk to get there, but, if we're adding a dog park here, is that adding stress to the wildlife that's already at the HHR? Can you mitigate some of that by, telling people to go to our Autry Dog Park? I think those are some of my high level ones. I think I'm obviously just given the proximity here and that all my neighbors know I'm on the board. I really do want to see this thing, kind of take the feedback that you've heard from the community and come back and incorporate that. And I will just say, and the challenge I always have with a concept presentation, because, there's like, why do we do concept presentations? Like, well, why don't we do them? And it's hard for you because you want the feedback, but at the same time, there's no guarantees, on whatever you hear from the board, that when we bring this to the quasi-judicial actual hearing, you might get a very different answer. Depending on the timeline, it might be a very different board. I'm hard-pressed to kind of look at this in terms of the density being discussed here, and I do have a huge appreciation for what you're targeting in terms of the rents. But given the volumes and, if this was in a different location in Superior that had a hard corner or closer access to public transportation, I'd be in a very different space. But what we're effectively talking about here is a commuter-based development, 600 plus cars, which is going to be hard pressed to be absorbed into the existing infrastructure from the roadway specifically. So it's a lot, but I just wanted to get that all out based on the emails that we're getting, the presentation you guys gave last week, my close proximity here and everything else. But like I said at the beginning, I do appreciate you guys actually trying to come in here and get the feedback at the front end.
Yep, as you were talking, I was definitely writing down the questions and concerns, and I could respond to some of these now. I don't really know if that's the format or not, or if it's just sort of
totally up to you. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, just to address a couple of these. So we didn't have the sound wall for a couple reasons. One, we don't think it really provides a visually pleasing experience from Highway 36, just looking at a big sound wall. So what we've done is decided to incorporate STC rated glazing, so windows and doors to kind of mitigate that sound. The traffic light, we'll be paying for the traffic light improvements, so Superior shouldn't have to foot the bill for that. We could take a look at the density. Obviously, we're going to do a traffic study, so we'll have more, more there in time. And then the dumpster location, that's really good feedback. Just, it's a property management. They make sure they're covered and trash isn't blowing around. We have on-site maintenance. We'll make sure that that's a point of emphasis. And like I said, we'll make sure to be able to respond to all these.
Yeah, much appreciated. Thank you.
Yep.
Just one follow-up question I wrote down. So obviously density is a big topic. And what we're trying to understand is lower density typically means higher rental rates because you have less units, you have larger units. So the rental rates have to go up.
And that pushes us higher than our goal of that 60 to 100% AMI. So what I'm just trying to understand is, we can certainly evaluate that. It's just a different demographic we'd be targeting.
I completely agree with you, and it's the sort of Gordian knot of trying to figure this out. Given the nuance of this parcel, if it was a hard corner, this would be a lot easier. You could probably go to 20 units per acre and not even notice it. If you're next to a BRT or some sort of transit, maybe you could get away with less parking. I don't know the answer to that question, and it makes it really hard specifically to this parcel. There's others within the town that I think this could actually be absorbed. This one just, I don't know how you hit those same numbers that you're trying to from your economics, given that you've only got one street to absorb all that. But I hear what you're trying to do, and I do appreciate it. The town has had the affordable housing ordinance on the books, and we have yet to truly deliver much on it yet. So I want to see more of our development projects get there, but not all of them can fit, unfortunately, into our 4 square miles, given the roadway network that we have. But I'm open to any conversations we can have about how to alleviate some of that.
Do you have an idea of what density would make sense?
No, I have no clue. No,
Okay.
I'm the wrong guy.
Because we're just taking the comprehensive plan and what's kind of been formed
Sure.
and trying to mold into that, right?
Yeah, and I think the comp plan, it looks at the parcels, but it doesn't contemplate sort of the logistics of trying to live in those spaces, right? In the comp plan on this parcel, it's actually not contemplating roadway capacity for 88th Street. It kind of takes, and we haven't actually adopted it yet, but it kind of takes a one-size-fits-all, hey, this parcel could be this parcel could be that, but, each parcel has, limitations or not limitations. Some are closer to the rapid transit and others are much further away.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Any additional questions for the developer? I do want to give an opportunity for the public to give public comment as well.
Just wanted to say,
Well, right now, it's a concept plan, so we can do questions, but I'm going to give an opportunity for the public to give comment.
I just wanted to address the affordable housing that you guys are trying to do. Keep in mind the town of Superior is a really unique town when it comes to affordable housing. Boulder County's always been trying to get us to do affordable housing essentially for them. The median income, AMI is 100% in Superior is $160,000. You go down to Broomfield and it drops to $120,000. You go to Westminster, it's $98,000. So when you talk about trying to make affordable housing more attractive, you're competing with other municipalities that actually have the jobs that affordable housing necessitate. We don't have the infrastructure with jobs in this town that could really compete with Broomfield and Westminster, particularly when you've got the mall redevelopment that's happening at Flatirons is going to have a considerable amount of affordable housing, and they have the jobs in that town. Westminster the same way. So, I do like the idea of it, and I really wish we had more of a robust economic engine in this town where we had enough jobs to be able to truly embrace something like this. I'm not sure we're there yet. But the one thing you're kind of close to is the senior housing. And I'm just kind of curious, how many units, not percentage-wise, but just have a ballpark number, are you going to be providing?
Yep, so there's so this is very conceptual, right? These two-level buildings are meant to represent like a 12 to 14 unit building at this point in time for the unit count that we're discussing. So that would be 80 or so, 60 to 80 in the two-level buildings on the first floor. First level garage, first level entrance, one level living. And then the elevator served building is technically all one level as well. That's going to be like a little over 100 units there. So call it 160 to 180 units. That would be conducive for a senior.
Okay, let me ask you this question. It's a little off topic then. You guys are obviously a for-profit organization, right? Do you do projects like this that are not rental but are sales-based?
We do not.
You don't, okay. Because one advantage you guys could have if you wanted to go on a sales-based opportunity is the senior housing. Seniors don't just want apartments, they want their own properties. And right now, throughout the country, the hottest typology of building is senior housing, and not institutional type housing where there's independent living, assisted living, neighborhoods geared for 55 plus individuals. And that is the easiest bank loan to get for development of residential properties because they sell out right away. I'm just wondering if that number of units it's attractive for a rental, but the majority of them would much rather own their own property. But I do like the fact that you are taking a step towards recognizing seniors. And we do have a massive amount of people in this town who actually, the first people that came in, they created Rock Creek in the 90s. They're now above 55, 60s, 70s, and it's in the thousands, and they are going to need a place to go because they don't want to leave our town, but the homes they're in right now are just not at all conducive to aging in place. So I do like the step that you've approached with that, and I definitely applaud you for it, so thank you.
Thank you.
First, I just want to reiterate, thank you so much for having the informational session for the community to be able to provide feedback and then acting on the feedback. One of the things I didn't like about this was that trail, so I'm glad you heard about that already and listened to OSAC. And there is a lot that I appreciate about this. I appreciate the focus on keeping things affordable. Really appreciate that you doubled the amount of open space and cut the height requirement. That's great. I'm hard pressed, and I know it's not a you problem, but I'm very hard pressed to look at anything with this high of density with 88th already being a problem. I don't want to necessarily do anything that exacerbates that, and that's exactly what this will do. One of the things that I had in my notes, and so I'm glad that Jason was bringing it up, is senior housing. So if you're thinking about, because we're an out community, and so many people leave here to work, and you've got the school right there, and you're already going to have people commuting into the school. Having this as more of a senior development and scaling it back, I think could be better, because you're not going to have people commuting out for work at the same time as we're going to have that school traffic. To Jason's point, we've got a large basis of our population is aging, and they need places to go. I was just talking to a few of our residents today, and they were saying that they've got neighbors just on their street, not even all within the community, but even just on their street, that need a place to be able to go, but it costs too much to downsize. You're basically downsizing to exactly what you're paying now. So being able to have units that are focused on senior living that they can purchase, I think is, I guess, a little more of where my headspace is at, providing that, because we need that. And right now we just have Kite Route Crossing, and that's not going to do it for the amount of seniors that we have. So to Neil's point, I think this would be better served in another location that's by bus and rapid transit, that's not kind of hamstrung with this corridor that's already too tight for the amount of traffic that exists. So I would be much more in favor of a development that focuses on a population that's not going to be commuting at the same time as the school. And then, as much as I love the affordability, I would rather see less units. And maybe that means a higher price point, but it's less of a burden on the road, our existing residents, being able to scale that back more. So keeping more of that open space, because that is such an important ecological area. That would be my feedback on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any additional questions for the developer? All right. Thank you for the presentation. I'd like to open it up for public comment. Anybody here in council room like to give public comment? Who's up first? Nick.
Well, Chris Cole, I live on Amherst in Superior, resident. Was not able to make it to the meeting the other night for the input on this. I will say density is a huge concern. I think it's been addressed by all your questions. My concern is that living over here, I've seen the purchase of the CenturyLink property, right? You have that huge open space that everybody supposedly benefited from, but I think that's more just for the south side of town. And so I feel like the north where I live, which is very close to this property, we start dealing with, I would like to see this as open space. I don't think we're going to get that ever, because we just don't have the money. And as I hear things going on tonight, that we had to raise taxes to get the roads, get the pools, the density is a problem, but also just trying to maintain what that brings in for the 88th Street and everything. We can't maintain it right now. I think giving up on this being zoned as it is a big mistake, because we are just a bedroom community. If you look at the development around Louisville with that Red Tail Ridge coming in, the hospital, the life sciences, everything. Those are jobs that are bringing in that Louisville will get to benefit from, not necessarily us. I think we do have an opportunity with this property to keep it zoned as it is, to bonus kind of off of Red Tail Ridge and see if we can't get some type of other commercial development there. It still allows to have that space there. You'll have less density because, like, I walk by Key Bank every weekend. It's empty. So there's no traffic there on the weekends. You don't see that additional, flow in there. The residents, if you bring in 350, 700,000 people into that space, it's going to get really intense with the density around there. And we just don't have any kind of tax base to support that kind of increase. We keep adding people, but no way to pay for it. And so I think having jobs and leaving this commercial and trying to get some kind of development in there that could provide jobs and opportunities for people in Superior would be far better for use of this property than adding another 1,000 people to this town. So that's what I wanted to put in on that, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Nice to see you tonight. My name is Amber Greaves, and I'm on OSAC. I did attend the neighborhood session hosted by the Garrett Companies last week, and while I agree with many of the public comments that were made, I'm speaking tonight just honing in on that topic of wildlife on the private Zaharias property. This was a topic that was brought up by numerous residents at that input session, and it's of high value and importance to our community. So as the council is aware, OSAC has worked hard over the last number of years on developing recommendations for the preservation of wildlife and habitat around the Hodgson Harris Reservoir and on the Zaharias property itself. This work was formalized in a position paper in 2019 and in a Prairie Dog Playbook that has been updated regularly over the last several years, and that was referenced tonight. Several iterations of the council have been kept abreast of and have been supportive of the evolution of these efforts. It has been OSAC's longstanding position that any development on Zaharias needs to be accompanied by action to steward this valuable ecological resource. I want to just quickly highlight two key recommendations as you consider and provide feedback on the development concepts presented. The first is for that wide buffer zone, and I really appreciate that that's already been addressed with the trail, so I'll omit those parts of my comments. But just to reemphasize there that the wide buffer zone needs to be free of human and pet access, or the encroachment will significantly impact what wildlife ends up remaining at the HHR. We want people to be able to enjoy wildlife viewing in that area and to provide educational opportunities, but this needs to be placed outside of that buffer zone. Thus, any trail, wildlife viewing platform, et cetera, needs to be over at least 100 feet from that high water mark. Additionally, the use of permeable surfacing and buffering with barriers such as shrubs or berms would also provide runoff or pollution filtering and habitat protection. And then that second major OSAC recommendation is to highlight the relocation and preservation of prairie dogs on the property. Thanks for bringing that up already. Within the town of Superior, the prairie dog population has significantly reduced, and the only remaining prairie dog colony not on Boulder County open space exists on the Zaharias property. In the case of the concept plans being presented, the prairie dogs would need to be translocated. OSAC has done much of the heavy lifting for this by completing significant research and creating a plan that addresses both logistics and release sites. This playbook is comprehensive but also dynamic and regularly updated. So quickly, why is preservation of prairie dogs so critical? This keystone species of the prairie is a main indicator of healthy prairie ecosystem. Over 140 species benefit directly from them, including those that frequent the HHR area, including eagles, hawks, and coyotes. Currently, less than 1% of prairie dogs and their habitats remain in the West. Their removal creates landscape scale loss of various plants, wildlife, and climate conditions necessary for the health of our planet. In Superior, the removal of native prairie dogs also creates more vulnerability to wildfire, as we depend on their grazing and clipping of vegetation, which reduces fuel load. We need them here. Tonight, I ask the council to continue to support the longstanding work of OSAC by laying the groundwork of expectation right off the bat for stewardship and conservation of the natural resources specific to this property. Those paying attention have seen what happens when there is merely lip service paid to conservation in the context of development, and no meaningful action is ultimately taken. We only need to look a little further down 88th for a current example of this. While the coyotes used to roam the site that is now becoming Red Tail Ridge, I've now seen 2 in the last week running directly down 88th Street, and one just merely a few hours ago on my way home from work running down Northwest Parkway along the back of the site. Next will be the inevitable human-animal conflict we'll have to manage as a result of displacement. When I asked the representatives of Garrett last week if they had seen OSAC's work and what their interest or commitment was to stewardship and conservation of resources at Zaharias, they responded with a willingness to collaborate, and I thank you for that. I asked the council to please be a leader in Boulder County by taking measures to ensure that collaboration is an expectation from start to finish, as this proposal potentially makes its way from concept to Planning Commission and potentially back to you again. If Garrett is as motivated for approval as it appears, they can modify plans as needed and agree to contingencies to respond to the community's desire to preserve community wildlife. And with their impressive annual revenue of $67 million a year, an unencumbered setback and translocation of prairie dogs should be a small price to pay to do the right thing. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, I'm Jen Lean. I'm a resident at Saddlebrook. And like I said at our public comment meeting, I'm a terrible public speaker, so I'm going to read to you my thoughts. Please bear with me. Good evening, Mayor and esteemed members of the council. Thank you for listening and giving us the opportunity to provide feedback regarding this important property. I'm here tonight because the Zaharias property is more than a land use decision. It's a public safety decision. Anyone who uses 88th Street knows how congested it already gets, especially during Monarch School drop-off and pickup. Now imagine that same road during an emergency. The Marshall Fire showed us how quickly evacuation routes can become overwhelmed and how devastating the consequences could be when they do. If another emergency were to require evacuation, 88th Street would be a critical lifeline. Adding development on the Zaharias property would increase traffic on an already strained corridor, making it harder for families to leave safely and for emergency responders to get in when seconds matter. This land also protects something our community is already invested in, and I think Boulder County invested in, the Hodgson Harris Reservoir and the surrounding wildlife habitat. Preserving it as open space would safeguard that investment and keep this area functioning as a buffer instead of a bottleneck. I'd welcome a development such as this for our community, as I think Garrett did a great job putting together a very thoughtful and an intentional plan, especially regarding seniors. I just don't think this is the right location for our community. Once this land is developed, we can't undo it. Choosing to preserve this land as open space, if possible, is choosing safety, foresight, and care for our community. I urge you to consider the long view, to prioritize evacuation readiness, traffic safety, and conservation by preserving the Zaharias property as an open space. It's not just about land use, it's about protecting lives, infrastructure, and the future of Superior. Thank you so much for your consideration, and thank you for your service.
Thank you for your comments.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Kara Noisy, also a member of OSAC, and I attended the engagement last week, and I've got to tell you, it was really a positive experience. I really appreciated all of the opportunity you had to listen to our questions, and you're obviously quite receptive in that you included it in your presentation this evening, so thank you so much. You know, it'll always be OSAC's position to recommend to you that if at all possible, it would be great if this could be maintained as open space in perpetuity. That being said, we also know, and that's why we've been developing for years, contingencies. So if development comes, we just hope that you work with us and let us provide recommendations as we collaborate with any developer for key things. And so the buffer zone this is a great, for example, I love that you included that into your presentation. That is the bare minimum buffer. And so I still hope that there is room for more collaboration with this project or any potential project. There are 170 bird species that frequent this reservoir, 30 of which are listed as critical. So a 100-foot buffer is the bare minimum what is preferable is 200 to 300. So just keeping things in mind. And Amber already mentioned some of the other items in terms of what kind of shrubbery and whatnot would be included. We just asked to be included. But I just wanted to say thank you for being receptive to public engagement, and just ask council if you could continue that and continue to be receptive to our input, which you are. I'm so glad that you're aware of those documents, the Prairie Dog Playbook. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, I'm Sarah Owens. I live in Superior. And I'm happy to say all my questions and concerns have been addressed this evening, so I have nothing more to add. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right. Turning to Zoom, anybody on Zoom like to give public comment, use the raise hand feature and we'll call you in the order which your hand is raised. First up, we've got Giovanni Enciso. Apologies for butchering your name.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, I am so sorry. I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties here. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. First of all, good evening to everybody. I would like to thank you for your service to the town of Superior. I've been living here with my family for the last 20 years. My kids drove their bikes to school. They went to Superior schools and to Louisville schools. And I live very close to where the Saharia's wildlife area is. I want to thank you guys for the commitment you have for the town safety, because you have created bike lanes, you have created concrete islands, you are reducing speed wherever you can for the safety of everybody in the community. But thinking about this type of construction on 88th Street, on the map, they show 3 exits on that one street for about 700 cars, where children will be riding their bikes, where children are walking to school. So I remember back in 2020, and I'm looking at my notes, there was another developer that tried to do something not similar. It was about 200 units, less than that. And it was deemed unsafe because of the amount of traffic. So it never prospered. It was never built. It was rejected by the town. And I think that was a great response because, again, you guys are committed to our safety. And I'm just very worried about how 88 will be if we dump 700 cars in this road that only has 1 lane to the right, 1 lane to the left, 3 exits that really can't go anywhere but right or left. And everybody is going to try to get to school, to get to work, especially during, 8 o'clock to 8:39, which is when everybody's trying to get to work and to school. So I'm very concerned about that. And I would like to find out or figure out if there's any way that more studies can be conducted when it comes to traffic. Because as it is, I don't think it's even possible to do something like that. And another concern I have is about that 100 feet buffer for the wetland. I was picturing in my head how they're going to proceed with this construction. Where are they going to park their machinery? Where are they going to store their construction materials? Where is all that waste going to go if it's not to the Hudson Reservoir? It's scaring away all the animals that are out there. There's bald eagles flying around there eating the prairie dogs. And as far as I know, they are a protected species. So, I believe that for the size of this project, I concur with Neil when he says that this is not the location. Yes, it is true that we are getting older here in Superior and we need some places for seniors to live. But I think this would be best in a corner lot where you have exits to 2 streets. Anything happens to one and you get blocked, you can always run an exit the other way here everything goes to 88 and there's no way to escape. So I really hope that the town takes the time to think about this, if this is the best for our little community. Maybe what we want to do is rethink again where we want to build this. The idea is great. Like I said, seniors do need a place to live. It'd be great if it would be something for the seniors to buy, not to rent. Because I think it would be in the benefit for everybody, but I leave it up to the town to do what you guys always do, is take care of us and make sure that whatever is best for the community happens. I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Susan Bauer.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Fantastic.
Go ahead.
I'm Susan Bauer, 1770 Morrison Court. Good evening, Mayor. I want to thank Colin for the presentation and the trustees for their service, their thoughtful questions and insights, and your service to all of us, your neighbors. I want to be clear that I'm not opposed to development. Growth can be appropriate when it's thoughtfully planned and when it honors commitments made to existing communities. I am opposed to development that disregards longstanding agreements between the town of Superior, Louisville, Boulder County, and the residents who have relied on those commitments. The proposal, I think we're consistently hearing, is too dense for the location and raises serious public safety concerns. 700 additional vehicles in this area is not safe, particularly in the event of another Marshall Fire scare. Evacuation routes and emergency access were tested once, and none of us want to go through that again. This plan also fails to honor the agreements and values established through decades of collaboration. Since 2009, Saddlebrook residents have worked closely with the town of Superior, the Open Space Advisory Committee, Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, the Historical Commission, and the Boulder County Parks and Open Space to preserve and manage the adjoining property, the Hodge and Harris Reservoir. Those efforts, for those who may not know, informed the intergovernmental agreement for the Hodge and Harris Reservoir, which was negotiated in 2007 and amended in 2011 and fully funded by taxpayers of Superior and Boulder County. That agreement emphasizes open space, management, preservation, wildlife protection, and responsible development. Those commitments have been reinforced by studies such as the 2017 to the 2023 breeding bird studies that are available with Boulder County Open Space. In short, I feel that the proposal is too dense. It's inconsistent with prior agreement and does not truly deliver affordable housing. And I'd like to see any proposal that comes forward honor our binding agreements and commitments that reflect real community values and needs. At this time, I feel this proposal fails on all three counts and should be reconsidered. And I realize there's no consideration before the board. This is just the developers coming forth with a concept plan to the trustees. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else on Zoom? Now's your time. All right, Natasha Flyer.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Okay, sorry, yeah, so, one thing about this piece of property that I would love to talk to the owners about it, because there's one thing I've never understood, and as the development company has said, it's been undeveloped for 40 years, and, in real estate, and I think I've told the town board before this, I know I come from a real estate family, and real estate doesn't always go up. Real estate just...
We can't really hear you that well, Natasha. I don't know if you went away from your microphone.
Oh, sorry, how about that?
That's a little better. Yeah, that's better.
A little better? How's that?
It's a little better.
A little bit, okay.
That's better.
Okay. What I wanted to say was that this piece of land has been undeveloped for a long time, and there's really a reason for that. Real estate doesn't always go up, and real estate sells at the right price. And, you know, the problem with this piece of land is the original Zaharias family betted that the Northwest Parkway was going to go through there. And it didn't. And what's so ironic is that Zaharias died, and then it went on to be owned by the Victor Thomas family and the Clad. And it's co-owned by them. And what's ironic is that just across, because I was part of Red Tail Ridge in that deal, land sold for $90,000 an acre in Red Tail Ridge. They're asking $500,000 an acre on this. And it's not that Red Tail Ridge across is that much different of a land, but they're asking 5 times more for Zaharias. And, you know, it's, you know, the developers, I was there on Monday, and, you know, they were just to this foregone conclusion that this land will be developed. It will be developed for the right price and the right plan. And I'm not going to reiterate anything because everything has been said. Basically, it isn't, and I think Emil put it the best, it really isn't the right plan for this piece of land, given traffic, density, wildlife. I'm not going to go into any of those issues, but it's all put forth. But the only thing I wanted to put forth is I don't understand why people think that real estate always goes up and they can always get the price they want for it. It's no different than any other security, financial security, you know? And so I just wanted to say that, and I wanted to say thank you to the board. You did wonderful comments, and thank you for listening to us. I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else on Zoom like to give public comment? If so, use the raise hand feature. All right, seeing none, turn back to the boardroom here. Anybody else in the room like to make public comment? All right, seeing none, public comment is closed. Turn it back to Neil.
I do want to add a comment to the developer when you come back, because I think when we expanded 88th Street, I think we bought the right-of-way to go to 4 lanes. I'm looking at Mark because he might remember, or Matt. We didn't. So I thought, like, we only left it at the 2 lanes, but I thought we went and we got the ROW.
We exchanged some right-of-way with CDOT, but it wasn't in the right-of-way for the road.
Okay. Because I think the biggest issue we ran into, what we learned at the time, was any expansion of 88th is gated by the bridge.
Right.
And expanding the bridge is never going to happen unless you get the triple P to, you have to make them whole because they own the toll lanes. You've got to make them whole if you're expanding that bridge, which is basically means that no one's going to expand that bridge like anytime ever. But that was one of the issues that we sort of looked into. If we wanted to take 88th to 4 lanes on our side, you could get rid of the bike lanes on the bridge to try to get 4 lanes going away, then you lose your bike lanes. So there's nuance here. So this just more things to throw in your blender of trying to figure this out, because when we redid 88th Street, because it was a terrible road in 2020 before we redid it, this was a huge part of the contemplation in terms of how do you add more capacity to this roadway, and the bridge is a proverbial bottleneck because it's owned by somebody else. So just wanted to put that out there. So this has been part of the board's dialogue for the last million years. So that's it. Sorry.
Thanks, Neil. Mike?
I really do appreciate the developer having a community meeting just to get some initial feedback. I really think that's a positive first step to build trust within the community and build a collaborative relationship. So again, thank you so much. And I really appreciate so many of the public speakers tonight thanking the developer for taking that first step. I think that's fantastic. My concern with this particular proposal now is it's an island residential development. It's not near transit. As has been said before, I think this is maybe not the right place for this type of development. If this were in the marketplace, I'd be all over this. I do think that even if this were for sale units for seniors, seniors would still have to get into their vehicle and drive to the grocery store or drive over to the marketplace. So it wouldn't be a convenient place for seniors to walk to shopping or amenities that they need. So my preference at this point would be to keep it zoned as RAC, just because it's not connected to any local transit. And as the traffic concerns have been brought up, we were discussing the roundabout on Rock Creek or on 88th earlier tonight. And so we're about to invest a huge amount of money in that traffic circle. And what does adding 700 more vehicles do to that traffic circle? Does that mean that the work we're doing now, it actually does need to be a 2-lane roundabout? So I realize that would all come out of a traffic study. So it'd be a lot more information I'd need before I could be supportive of this at this time. But I really appreciate all the work you've put into it so far. I love the three-dimensional modeling. I think it gives a really great bird's eye view so the community can have a better understanding of the elevations of what they would be looking at, what they would be experiencing. So I really appreciate all the work so far. So thank you.
Anything further? All right, I'll just close with thank you for coming forward with this concept plan. Thank you for engaging with the community. That's, I think, a critical first step in any major project that's going to come potentially before town council for a land use decision. We want to make sure that any decision that we're going to be making is something that the community has buy-in for. We've seen a lot of different concepts over the past 10 years on Zaharias. So none of those have, fit the requirements of the board at the time and the community. So I would just encourage you to go back and kind of look at how those discussions unfolded. Things have changed over the years. The Weldona Road was closed. The Promenade Road was added. 88th was redone, and the bike lane was put in. Now we've got the Red Tail Ridge construction that's going to be going on across 36, adding obviously a lot of additional traffic in that entire area. And certainly be mindful of the impact to the school traffic, because that's probably one of the things that impacts our residents the most on a day-to-day basis. People are already complaining about the traffic getting to the schools. Hopefully that gets alleviated as they expand the Red Tail Ridge development and provide a separate exit point out to, 96th? But that'll be several years out. So thank you for being here tonight. Thank you to members of the public for coming and speaking during public comment, and for all the community members who came to the meeting, and then also everybody who sent us emails. We appreciate it.
Mayor, can I make one more minor point? On one of your slides, there was a map of some of the local industrial, and you identified Red Tail Ridge as a life sciences hub. I'm not sure if you're aware or not, but we are trying to attract life sciences development in downtown, and I didn't see that reflected on your map. So I'd like to request that the next time that map comes forward, that you at least acknowledge that on the map, please. Thank you.
All right, unless there's anything further. All right, we're adjourned. Good night, everybody.